pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Well, to start the meeting off, let's approve the minutes that you've got in hand. Did everybody get a chance to look them over?
Yep.
Does somebody wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Gardner approves, seconded by Vanderwerf.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda. Are there any additions that need to be made?
I'd like to add a discussion when Russ is here, a little bit on gravel.
Okay.
I'll wait till Russ is here though.
Okay. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Miller, second.
Second.
Magrum, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next thing is the old and unfinished, okay, excuse me. The next thing is the old and unfinished business, farm equipment damage, that's on that mock deal, isn't it?
I have an update. Janet from North Dakota Insurance Reserve called me yesterday, and she talked to a couple of county employees that were up at the Denmark place working. And after visiting with them, she determined that the county is not negligent, therefore she's gonna be denying the claim. But she is gonna give Denmark a chance to, answer her email that she sent to him months ago, and he's not replying back. But as of now, she says she can't find where the county left that rock in the field, therefore she's finding them not negligent. The county is not negligent, so she's gonna be denying the claim.
Ooh, okay,
You guys were out there.
you were up there.
Yeah. Well, it was some pretty good runs.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't it? I felt that were major ones.
Yeah.
But
Not good PR.
no. Not at all.
Well, the only curious question I have though is how come Dan hasn't responded to inquiries from an insurance company? You know, when I've ever had an issue with my business where I was damaged and someone's insurance was looking into making me whole, I didn't sit on emails for weeks or months. I mean, I got back to him right away.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm kinda confused with, I mean, there's nobody that busy that they can't respond within weeks or months of an email, so that's a curious question that I mean, if you have insurance reserve denying it because they can't find negligence and the other party's not responding, it
How can they resolve it, you know?
Yeah.
kinda seems to me like just something that's apparently not that big a deal or something, so I guess that's.
Just move on.
So what do we wanna do with it?
Take it off the agenda without, without response from him, can we, or should we leave it on for?
The reason why it's on the agenda is because it keeps getting tabled month after month.
Well, we were looking for an update from Insurance Reserve, which I think you got
Which you
one,
did.
so now if Insurance Reserve is not gonna pay, it's up to the county if we're gonna pay or not, that's the question, so I guess my opinion, unless somebody's gonna make a motion to pay it, I would say we just take it off the agenda unless it resurfaces in some other form, I don't know, or somebody else wants to make a motion, I guess, but.
When you have money involved in this and you don't respond, it kinda makes you wonder, like you said, Aaron.
Things back at Cornhorse.
I could just come to my conclusion that I've had a couple different times where, one time was, our pickup got stuck on someone's property. They decided they were gonna help us out, and their truck was pretty powerful, and I think he wanted to pull us out. It was totally nice and great, but like, it just needed a tug, and we got drug halfway up a hill. Well, when the pickup slid, it ran into one of the power poles and it clipped the front
Oh, boy.
quarter. And the guy was like, you know what, cause we were screaming for him to stop, and he thought he would just pull us a little further. Anyway, it was a bad mix-up.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had offered to put it in his insurance. I think they called me the next day. I made sure to handle it, and in like 2 weeks, our pickup was fixed. Like, that's how you handle something like this. If Insurance Reserve is contacting you to try and get information, and you're not contacting them back, it just doesn't make any sense.
And she called me.
Oh,
She called me, and I talked to her, that's been, that was last fall, I think.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to make contact, so.
I think so, I guess we got our part.
Resurfaces.
I think we did our part, we were both out there, we looked at it, and we sat there with that, what's his name, Dan, right?
Or Dan.
Dan, yeah.
Okay.
But I guess if he doesn't respond to the insurance company,
Yeah.
In my opinion, I would consider it closed, I don't know, I mean, if you want that in the form of a motion or something, I would make a motion to remove it from old and unfinished business from now on unless something resurfaces.
And I put a
would
second.
you second it?
Yeah.
Gardner, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Done. Next thing on the agenda is public hearing to consider petition to close section line in between the north half of section 7, township 130, range 75, and the north half of section 8, township 130, range 75.
I think we have to wait till 9:15 for that.
I would recommend you wait till
Till
9:15.
9:15? Okay, all right. Do you wanna go down on the others, or you wanna wait, go down into the miscellaneous and address that? I think going to the
Just
miscellaneous.
do a few small things until 9:15.
Holberg isn't here, the zoning ordinance isn't
You could
here.
do the 1031,
Do what?
you could do the 1031.
I was an authority board member to replace the unexpired term, okay,
Oh,
now,
yeah.
John. Is there a board member that has stepped forth?
You guys
replace
have to
Mel.
appoint somebody,
This is the first time it's been on the agenda though,
Yeah.
right? Cause I don't remember talking about it before, 'cause
Right.
Mel passed away, right?
right?
Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
so, I mean, just historically, it was always usually was if it's in that person's district, which Mel lived in my district, I guess, so.
Okay, in town.
Yeah, so I've put that on other people, so I should probably take on that I would take on the responsibility of finding a replacement unless any of you have a candidate or something, but.
Well, I wouldn't,
Cause you usually, I mean, kind of the unspoken rule is you try and get someone from every district on these boards, just to kind of,
Yeah, to
you know, so you don't have three people from
Yeah.
Hague or Hazelton,
Right.
whatever, so.
Do you wanna take it upon
I
yourself?
will do
Go out and
everything I
search,
can to
okay.
find a board member for the housing authority,
good, thank you.
Good deal, thank you.
yeah. Hey Joe, are you in my district? No. Just kidding. An exciting job opportunity.
What can we do, guys, here? Do you wanna go down on these building permits?
Yeah.
And to look at them, might as well.
Probably do a couple of them.
James, there's other building permits and vacancies.
The stuff from you, Jim, you wanna talk to that when Russ is here, correct?
Yeah, Russ probably wants to talk more about it than I do, but yeah.
Yeah.
So those first two building permits, they're on that same tower that's east of Strasburg, and they're just redoing all the new antennas and
Oh, by
on the
our-
tower itself, so.
Okay. Well, the building permit is for Verizon and Crown Castle USA, minor modification to the existing wireless facility in the northeast of the northwest quarter of section 25, 13176 of the 5th prime meridian. That's that El Bosch tower.
Yep.
Everything's just going on the current antenna.
Yeah, it's two companies that must have, they use that same tower, so
Oh.
that's what
That's on El Bosch's
both
property.
permits are for.
They're just gonna add, yeah.
Yeah, they're taking down old ones, putting new ones up.
I would make a motion
Motion.
to approve,
Okay.
both permits since it's considered on the same antenna.
Okay, Aaron makes a motion to accept.
Second.
Second, Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The next one is a building permit for the new Singular Wireless PCS LLC. Install 6 new antennas, but that's both of these here, correct?
Yep.
I think the motion included.
Yeah, if you wanted to.
I should probably just read it though to bring it.
That's fine.
Oh,
sure.
yeah, sure.
Remove the 12 RRH radios, install 9 new RRH radios. Remove and replace 1 tower-mounted surge protector. Install 1 new DC power trunk cable on the cell tower northeast of the northwest of west of the right-of-way of section 25, again, 13176. Okay, so that's done. Application for abatement or refund of taxes for parcel 52-6-446-0 for tax year 2024.
I believe it's a homestead credit, both of these are.
So that's, okay.
Number 3 and number 7 are both homestead credits.
3 and number 7.
For instance, I'm trying to do with them, submit the plans with them too.
Yeah, just
So,
get
all-
yeah.
Do what, Larry?
Well, the cell ones, they always submit
All
the
this
detailed plans,
documentation,
so
all
that
that
they're,
stuff.
yeah, they're pretty thorough, so when you get these thick ones, it's,
Holy,
I would
Will you
make,
go through it, Jim, and report in the
Yeah,
next 2 minutes what it all consists
figure
of?
out this, data equation here,
Yeah,
how to
right.
figure out their radios and report back to the grid.
yeah, a few minutes.
Pretty hefty stuff.
What about
there,
3
yeah.
and 7?
3 and 7 are homestead credits.
Okay.
Chairman Materi, I would make a motion to approve the homestead tax credit applications.
3 and 7?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a second to it?
I'll second.
Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried to accept the allocation of aid and refunds. Next one is number 4, annual management program for Langley Bay.
I gave you guys all a copy of this morning, we put together the program,
Oh, right here.
they just wanted.
It's in our packet.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it was in the
The
stuff.
one
she
that
gave
you
this
have to
morning.
sign, Dan, is a
I
bunch
got
of
it.
signatures.
Okay,
So we kinda just we worked with the road department, putting together a management program for them that we have to send them, it's for Langley's Bay. The last page, I believe, we have all the expenditures and everything.
yep, yep.
And this water use one, that's what we agreed to pay,
Yeah.
pay the landowners for their well use.
To use their well?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, is there a motion to accept that?
I so move.
Second.
Second, Vanderhorst, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried on that one. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer then.
Well, with this one, yeah, basically what it is that the Corps of Engineers basically built that ramp, but they don't manage them, or there's a, so we're the lien holder, title holder of Langley's Bay, so that's why we do that. Part of the agreement was they built it, but we tar the road going into it, we take care of the garbage and we supply water and
So
stuff.
we slid that document.
So that's kind of a part of, and why Beaver Bay and Hazelton Boat Ramp are different, I don't know for whatever reason, but Langler's Bay one, if that was a specialty one, they're like, we'll do it, but you take, I don't know why, but
I've never been back there, that's. nice
Langler's,
dock,
it's
yeah.
nice, it's beautiful
Oh, yeah.
back there. Yeah,
Been paved
no,
all the
that's,
way.
so like when,
You ever been
like
back
with
there?
Sam
Oh,
Rentschler, when Sam comes in, that's basically what he's doing is Langler's I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's like the last one in Emmons County you can get into River on when it's
Right.
low.
Right.
That's
Is
nice,
it?
it's nice down there,
That's a nice bay.
yeah, that looks good.
The next one is number 5, building permit for Richard Weigel to replace windows, doors, and flooring to residence tract 426.6 of 177 feet, and tract 3 in the southeast of section 6, township 132, range 76.
I motion we approve.
Approve that? Second?
I'll second.
Gardner, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next one, number 6, is the 6-county meeting, March 11th of 2025 at 10 a.m. at the American Legion Hall in Ashland.
We're looking for
Are you guys gonna-
RSVPs yet?
Yeah, well, I should let her know how many are coming.
It doesn't work for me
Here,
here.
it won't work.
Next week, Tuesday.
Are you going, Gardner?
I think I can go.
Miller?
You're going?
I can do it.
Okay.
Are you gonna go, Jim?
Yeah, I think I'll go too.
You going?
I already RSVP'd, but my schedule changes with a phone call, so don't be surprised if I cancel out, but I'd like to go, I plan to
I'd like to
attend,
go, but
yeah.
But for now, you're going?
I plan to attend, yes.
And I do have a couple of, there's been 3 requests, I think, from Emmons County to put on the agenda.
Yeah, one of those is mine, so I'll maybe have one of you two guys. It was just, I wanted to know the other, county's thoughts on having our own engineer. If any of them do, and the advantage would be maybe they could search out some grants.
I did some research on that, after our public meeting, I can, if you wanna give me a little bit of time, I won't do it now, cause we're about 30 seconds away
Yeah.
from opening that public meeting, but I did a little research on that, I talked to a buddy of mine who works for an engineer out of Bismarck, Sabra Engineering, and kinda got an idea on costs and what we'd be looking at, and,
Oh, good.
it's a little bit more than I thought, but yeah, we'll talk about it.
It's probably not feasible.
No, I think it could be, depending on if we can get cities on board.
Okay,
I know the auditor in Linton, she kinda liked the idea a little bit, and
okay. Well, maybe one of you guys could bring it forward with the meeting, okay? Debbie's having a hand, so do that.
Oh, is she?
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing to consider a petition to close section line in between the north half of section 7, Township 13075, and the north half of section 8, Township 13075. Is someone here to represent this?
Yes,
Kenny?
Dan.
Dan? You guys wanna step up?
Or here. I'll try and talk a little, you'll read the letter, excuse my voice. Actually, all the checks on the petition to close can be checked. All you need is one, according to state law, to qualify. We qualify under all. It's not been used for over 70 years. That's certified. It is not required for public travel. The highway cuts right around it. It was closed after the highway came into existence, the Blacktop Road in 1950. And then Pete, our neighbor, went to Harding Township and asked to close it. You have the road, okay, you have it there, plus you see the highway that will go around, and the road doesn't continue to the north off this section line, and it contains many rocks. I had John Everly come and help dig rocks.
Yeah.
He said this is right up there with south of Hague. He said this is bad. So anyway, it would need 4 culverts. I'll have, if Danny read the letter I wrote this morning, being my voice is not good.
Elmer Rourke and his dad Pete's observation in 1950 when the new Highway 83 opened for traffic. The farmers, namely Lester Peterman, Felix Silvernagel, and Balzer Sher, no longer used the section line. They came to the Blacktop Road and went to town on that. What an improvement. Pete then went to Harding Township Board and asked if the section line could be closed. It was closed in 1951, 74 years ago. Nobody questioned it. They were happy for the new highway. It has been fenced ever since. The individuals running cattle on it for the last 74 years have had a great advantage. Now our intention is to clean up the rocks and farm it and gain some of the same advantage over a period of time. If we still were running cattle, we would have left the fences in place and nothing would have been questioned for the next 70 years. If not approved because of the dangers that exist with the rocks and the need to put in 4 culverts, the county would sure need to lessen their exposure by completing this work. Our attorney tells us if the township books surface the language of that transaction, which my dad was part of, would supersede what happens here today. In my mind, the property tax that we pay would benefit the county the best by continuing what was already done in 1951. We appreciate your time today and thank you for serving on this board. Thank you, Kenny and Dan.
Any discussion?
There's really no reason for anyone to drive in there, right?
well, wouldn't this kinda be the exact opposite of the road that we talked about up on the River Road? Where we couldn't really improve that section line because that road had been driven on, well, this road hasn't been driven on for 70 years, so
Yeah.
it's not really an established trail anymore, so now a guy could pretty much do anything you wanted with it, can't you? I mean, it would be different if there wasn't a highway that runs and another gravel road and you can get to it 2 different or 3 different directions. In my opinion, it would be substantially different if there wasn't an entrance half a mile away to the gravel road.
Which farm is there right underneath 91st Street, that blue star?
This one,
You
it's
got
Yeah.
it.
vacant.
Oh, it's vacant.
That
That
one.
was
The road
Elmer's
that goes
farm.
south of it.
Oh,
Right.
What's that?
The road that goes south,
13?
yeah.
What about it.
Is there anybody living on that road from that point south? Is that traveled, Ken? Can it be traveled?
That is traveled. Lester Peterman
That's the
farm
Peterman
was
Road.
there, and Donovan Silvernagle, way down by, close to Hall would be Kenny and
Oh.
Shannon.
Oh, okay.
But nobody has the need to go straight north. They hit the highway, they're going to Linton, mostly, you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is there any access off the highway to that parcel? Like, is there an approach? Is there an approach off the highway?
There is an approach,
Okay.
and that was another thing that they mentioned to me. If you would start the work, redo this section line, that would be new work. They'd want a 90-degree access to the highway, if you start work on that.
There's an old railroad bed there too, correct?
Yes, it's abandoned, of course.
Okay, is that back to you, or does the railroad still have?
Well, we own some of it down by the farm. We bought it years ago. This we haven't, not worth it.
Well, to
Pardon
the
me?
north of this, didn't you do some work on the railroad area by a culvert? That you dug it wide open, and do you own that?
No, BN came and did it, because there was a hard rain 2 years ago, and it backed up the water on that piece for almost 3/4 of a mile. And it almost went over the railroad. It washed up on the railroad bank, and would BN realized there was a state highway, or federal highway, right beside, they came down and dug it open.
Oh, they dug it open.
They dug it open. They
You
didn't
said
want
you
the
don't own it,
liability.
I thought you opened it up.
No, they didn't want the liability of that railroad washing out and, taking the highway
It
out.
would've been nice if they'd have cleaned it up a little bit when they were done, and
Yeah.
they just kind of bashed it open and left, didn't they?
They came and they left.
Yeah.
right.
But there's no benefit for you to open that, or own that railroad.
No, none. I told them, no benefit. They want like $9,000 for that,
Railroad right away.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all rock and gravel still.
and it's a big embankment.
Well, unless you needed a bunch of dirt.
Don't need you out there,
You
you
need
go.
it filled somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, right.
A lot of money spent to build it.
Yeah, if you only knew what it costs to build a mile of railroad now.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just don't see an issue with,
So we don't,
if it hasn't been traveled in 70 years and it's been fenced in and nobody's missed it.
Is there a document of record where Harding
There
Township
was in the
filed
book,
it?
my dad said, someone, after the township dissolved, someone wanted to read the books with a promise of bringing them back. We've never seen them. They're out there someplace.
cause the.
And this was never filed though in Emmons County.
No, back under township rule in the 20s and 30s and early 1900s, you didn't have to file.
Well, I think most of them township documents usually came to the county after they dissolved. That was kind of the norm, was that you took your documents into the county and preserved them here once you dissolved your county. So if them books didn't make it here after Harding Township resolved, yeah,
Exactly.
they're in somebody's basement or somebody, you know, I don't, they're
Somewhere.
you know, but.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Cause that's, I think that's how we ended up with a lot of the old township documents was,
It was a
last
group of-
step to dissolve is to bring your stuff here, so.
There were 3, 4 guys in these township boards too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Local farm guys.
Now we couldn't even put a board together in our township.
No,
From Hague to where Columbo lived, Dad said there used to be 45 people lived in that 6-mile stretch. Now there's 4. Our whole township consists of nobody.
Yeah. That's the truth.
it'll get worse.
Joe, what's your opinion?
Well, after reading the century code, you guys can close it down as long as you find one of the 4 reasons are true. It hasn't been traveled in 10 years. It's not travelable because of the terrain. It's not required because there's readily available accessible routes or dead ends on the highway. Looks like just about all of them could potentially be checked off, and you only, like he said, you only need one really. Also, you have to have the public hearing, which you're doing now, you have to find a public benefit. So I guess a benefit might be, it would be easier for him to farm that land, or just trying to honor whatever the townships did in the past, I suppose would be a benefit too, whatever you find. The only other thing I would consider is you probably wanna ask to see if there's anybody here to oppose it, just since it is a public hearing.
So you should what, sit and wait to see if anybody will oppose it?
Well, just call to see if anybody else wants to talk on it,
Well, I mean, like I said, the public hearing is at least timed for at least 15 minutes, so I would say, yeah, until 9:30,
Yeah,
9:40, either if somebody's here to speak, or if they walk in, I'd let them speak. That's-
Well, what would happen on this here if we don't abandon that and you can level it off and farm
well, yeah.
Does he wanna stick the money into it though, and then not really?
We will clean it up in time. It doesn't, we've done a lot of work, you can see, you probably have pictures. We've done a lot of work already, there's a lot more to do. I mean, if you are gonna continue and the county would wanna clean up, would spend time cleaning them rocks, because it would be a nuisance if somebody's flying down that, there's a line of rocks on both sides. You can see on the pictures.
Miles
I mean,
around.
this would be your liability, plus it needs 4 culverts.
Yeah, look at the
The
pictures.
public benefit would be, you don't have to stick money into it.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, the one thing about it is if you have someone improve the section line, but they farm over it, and we haven't closed the section line, then you're basically allowing them to encroach, which is a problem. I mean, just legally, I mean, you can't allow them to encroach on the section lines, you either gotta close it or keep them off it, and then, I mean, the other thing about the section lines, just to remember though, is, I mean, when you're, it's a useless section line now in the general sense, but, in the future, if there was any possibility of needing that access, you would have that public access to be able to improve and use for access. I'm not saying
How
you
long
have to
is
keep
that?
it open
How
because of
long
that,
is it
because
from the highway
every
to the-
piece of property in
It's
the
a
world
half mile.
technically could be developed someday, but, I
And
mean, the argument
basically
isn't just for today, it's
2/3 of
for
the
the
future
future, it's
back on
forever,
that
so
ground.
that's
Yep,
just
yep.
something to take
That's
into
it.
account,
Yeah.
but.
In my view of things, for 70 years, the need for all these roads has lessened because of less population.
Yeah.
There are kids moving back out to the farm, I mean, in Linton, there's a few people
yeah.
building houses out but they're pretty, yeah, I mean, they're not every farm like it was 70 years ago.
Oh, no.
That'd be an ideal area, the old Elmer Rory spot, it's close to the highway. That's what a lot of these young folks want.
It's pretty well, it's destroyed.
Carter, are you here for the
It
public
was here,
hearing?
dude,
You wanna?
Mine will be a little later.
Oh, you're not here for this
for
part,
that
okay.
irrigation, right?
You ever wanna see if anybody's against it, or?
I guess you could ask Dan.
Is there anybody in opposition against this closure of this section line?
On other closures, didn't we have, what, you have to get 5 signatures of neighbors, or was that?
Yeah, a little different process for, other roads
Okay.
than section lines. Section line has its own little
Okay.
procedure.
Rule to go by, okay.
Well, I mean,
Anybody else?
the interesting part about this is I don't really see a piece of ground here that doesn't have access from either Highway 83 or from 91st Street, so, I mean, unless someone would subdivide inside of it, which the odds are pretty slim,
Yeah.
you know, and you still more than likely would just maintain your access off the highway or off of 91st, which is
Yeah.
already built, you wouldn't wanna rebuild a section line just to build a driveway off of it, so, I mean, as far as closing a section line on this one, this is one of the few places where the section line is probably the worst access. You know, I mean, it's, you know,
Right.
some of them that you look at over the years or something, it might be the only access in and out sometimes, or, but this one's. like
What
you
is that, a
said,
half mile coming in from the highway in?
Half mile.
Half mile, right?
So, we're just talking north of the highway, right? This piece from Highway 83 to
Half a
91st.
mile, and a half a mile from west going in, right? Another half mile.
I would make a motion to close this section line.
Would you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Motion by Jim Gutty.
You can't use it anyway, it's, if they're willing to clean it up,
I'll second it.
Jim Vanderwerst seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Your section line is closed.
Thank you, fellas.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for cleaning it up, or
Yeah,
for
we are.
cleaning it up.
So you're gonna have to push that approach out, I'm sure, on Highway 83, right? What day will do that?
No, the approach will always stay,
Yep.
Oh, will it?
yes,
That's state law, okay.
yeah.
I think the big thing with those is if you try to improve it or move it or something, then that's
Then
where
it's
it
on
like,
you.
it's, I don't wanna use the term grandfathering, but they're just allowing them if they're still there, but yeah, they changed that rule whatever about the particular access, so if you wanna widen it or do anything, that's when you have to like reapply for a permit, and
We've dealt with that in the past,
they make you change pretty much everything.
and we've had to post a $1 million bond with the state to do any work along the highway. They wouldn't let us touch it.
I would say if you pile up all that rock and need to get rid of it, let us know, we maybe can use some of that rock too, if there's a project down.
Well, if you do, we have rock that we're gonna move, so
On that track.
if Ralph is interested,
I'm sure the price will be right.
I'm sure it would be.
Rock bottom.
Yep, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Did everybody bring their zoning book?
Yeah.
Yep, I did, yep.
You wanna go through that next?
I think it's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. The zoning ordinance update, general provisions in chapter 1, the recreation district. I've been looking through that.
I didn't see anything.
I didn't see it.
I didn't.
Well, just kind of, from what I could tell reading over it, the first few chapters are more so just definitions. You know,
Yeah.
what is a recreational district, what are conditional permitted uses inside of it that, you know, maybe don't conform to a recreational district, like things like, you know, gun and archery ranges, cause you wouldn't think of that in a recreational district, so if you got a conditional use permit and it was approved, that's something that would be allowed in it, you know, so you're more likely not gonna see a lot of changes unless there's certain descriptions in these articles until you probably get to more of the setbacks and things like that, so just, you know, the conditional use requirements on page 15 is probably where you're gonna start getting into where we might have to do some updating and changing, but,
On 15.
right, but like, I'm just saying, like, this first article, after reading it, it's like, there's probably not a lot to change, cause it's just the definition of the
Yeah.
area, so.
Why don't we, for next month, knock out all the district, I mean, it's not really, it's 14 pages.
Right,
Just, and it's basically, yeah, it's all, like Aaron said,
yeah,
it's definitions of residential district, and then that way, the following month, we can kinda get into the meat and potatoes of
That's
actual
it.
stuff that we might wanna change.
basically, if you're looking at basically articles 2 through 5,
Yeah,
that's gonna be pages 5 through 14.
yeah, and it's,
Yeah.
and
And
they're like,
that's-
they're
it's
like
just
about
gonna be a
fourth grade reading.
They're fourth grade
So,
reading.
should be able
It's
to
gonna
get
be
those.
just a continuation of your definitions is all it is.
Yeah.
Is that what you wanna do?
Sharon can read it to you, Dan.
Okay, okay.
I had a question on number
But I don't know if
12.
I'll understand it.
That ain't gonna make a difference if you read it or she does.
I had a question on number 12 in Article 1. It says raising of fowl, waterfowl or fish, provided that no structure associated with the raising of fowl, waterfowl or fish is located within 50 feet of the property line, and provided that no more than 50 fowl or waterfowl are owned. What size property is that? Is that per acre? For 10 acres, it doesn't say.
Oh, yeah, doesn't have.
Now, it has over here for hobby livestock, you have to have 2.5 acres for each grazing
Yeah.
animal. But over here, it doesn't say how big the property or how small.
What it can be confined to.
I mean, 50 birds is nothing on 10 acres, but,
Oh,
1
a
acre,
little.
that could be
A
an issue.
lot. You're right.
Do we wanna go by the acre, or how do you wanna clarify that?
I think, my opinion, we haven't had an issue with foul.
No,
Why grade when they don't have?
Yeah, I just think we just leave it.
Anybody else for discussion?
Well, the one that caught my eye, I guess, was paragraph 8, on the conditional use permits, cause the way I read it is, if you wanna have a restaurant or convenience store in the recreational district, you have to petition for a conditional use permit. That seems a little bit, is that what you guys want? I don't know, maybe you do,
Which, number 8?
Oh,
I believe, I would assume that Bayside's in the recreational district. I don't think they ever got a conditional use permit, probably not, but it's possible.
Well, that's also a little bit confusing too, though, because permitted uses inside a recreational district is resorts, marinas, boat launching, and rental facilities. Well, I would almost consider Bayside to be more of a resort, but then I guess that would just depend on the definition of a resort.
I suppose,
Because I don't know, commercial retail establishment, I mean, obviously that could be, yeah, I mean, that's where it says there are motels, service stations, convenience stores, bait shops, restaurants, so in 8, it describes it as something that needs to be a conditional use permit, but then in permitted use is a resort, so if you're not gonna change number 8, then maybe you should consider like changing number 2 under IA then, because that's a little bit confusing.
Resorts, marinas, and boat launching and rental facilities.
I mean, I think you would almost wanna just include all them under a conditional use permit then maybe if you're gonna go that far with the restaurant, you might as well do it for cause would you let someone just start a rental facility down there without some kind of permitting process would be the other question, so.
nice question to you guys, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, thanks for bringing it up and stirring the pot, we're almost done.
yeah.
Well, I mean, the only reason I stick up for the conditional use permit on some of this stuff is cause I think the intention of like a recreational district is like your cabins and your quiet places. If you're gonna build a business or something, I would say that maybe some people would probably wanna weigh in, because otherwise you're kind of.
Particularly in a recreation district.
Well, especially because if it's the kind of business a recreational district really wants or needs, it's gonna be a pretty easy process. If
Right.
everybody's like, man, we could sure use a gas station and a boat dock, and someone wanted to build one, I don't think you're gonna find a ton of as opposition, so. Cause if you go through and you have it where you just streamline that process, and all of a sudden everybody's like, well, we didn't want that down here, now I would say it'd be better to ask permission for something like that in a recreational district rather than just allowing it.
I would
You
say,
know, I mean,
I agree with you.
So maybe move 2 into conditional.
I would almost argue that you either eliminate 2 or move it in under 8 or something, if that was the case, and just create a permitting structure if people wanna do something other than, I mean, cause otherwise the other permitted things people are getting permits for, like a single family dwelling or, you know, things like that, or any kind of flood management. And I don't think we really wanna regulate, you know, people planting a bunch of trees, I mean, even like a nursery, I don't know if that's a big deal, but I would argue with the zoning part, if you're gonna have a commercial establishment, a permit would probably be proper, because the first question's gonna be access. Cause the last thing we want is people building commercial businesses in places where there's terrible roads or something too, you know, cause then it comes back to, well, we went and built this business, now we need a new road, well, who told you to build it there, you know, I think you should probably have some kind of regulation, just at least to protect the county in that sense too, so they're not demanding a road in a place where nobody ever had an intention to build one.
I think maybe move 2 under 8, conditional.
Combine them somehow.
Well, the question I'd have now would be, if you're gonna make an amendment like that, do you have to have a public hearing for something like that?
Well, we would have to have some sort of hearing at the end
When we get them all done.
So the best thing to do would probably be to,
Just make a note of it from 2 to 8.
Right, like we're in our office, and Amy's been typing this up, so she's about halfway through this book. So every time you guys suggest a change, I'm just gonna try to make it, so that.
Okay.
I'll have
Okay.
And then we'll do 2 readings on it and
I would-
adopt it after that.
So bring 2 to 8.
I would think, in my opinion, you'd probably wanna have a master list of ideas that we maybe we should vote to put it on the list.
Yeah.
as a group, like we agree, like that way we are all spitballing ideas on a list. We agree if something's gonna make the list, and then once that list is together, then those amendments can probably get put into some form of a public hearing for amendments, or that would probably be the cleanest way to do it, is to vote to put things on a list to be amended to the book. Does that sound crazy, or?
No, that sounds
To
good,
me, at least that way I have pretty
Okay.
specific direction.
yeah.
So I guess,
So we wanna take Article 1, Item 2,
yeah, I would say,
and move it to Item 8, correct?
yeah, I would say I would make the motion to begin a list of amendments, and the first amendment that I would propose for the list would be to remove, or to take item 2 under 1A and move it into item 8 under 1B in Article 1.
Good.
I know it's a lot.
Is it one or is it IA and IB?
It-
Well, it'd be, so it's Article 1, and then
yeah.
1A is the permitted uses, so item
There,
2
yeah,
under
1A.
1A,
Yeah,
I would move that to item 8 under 1B.
To 1B.
And that would be my motion, which I would suggest you take a second and we vote on it, so it's vetted to be on the list, that way we're not, I don't wanna have 100 things on there that all of us think is one thing, so I would make that.
You wanna make that
I would
motion,
make that
Claire?
motion to move it.
And I will second that.
All in favor of it?
Aye.
I oppose. Motion carries to do as we talk.
So just to be clear, that was a motion to put it on a list.
On a list,
And that
not
list,
to do it.
we vote to put it on the list, once that list is finalized, then we'll have to compile it with Joe into a list of amendments, and then have one or several public hearings, whichever is the
Yep,
proper way
okay.
to do it, to actually amend the ordinance.
Okay.
Okay,
good.
Okay. Do we wanna move forward with Holbrook? The next item at 10, or do we wanna wait till 10?
well, I'd say you wanna wait a little bit closer to 10, I did invite a couple people that,
That wanna show up
I just,
also?
cause a
I
couple,
did too.
just to be clear, I called a couple people that irrigate on the, towards the river, and, just asked them, if they knew much about the project, or if they had any questions or concerns, and told them when it was, so I told them 10 o'clock, so I would say I wouldn't start too early, just in case they are planning to attend, but.
I'll just take a break.
Yeah, we wanna take a break, or we can go to that, yeah. That's taken care of. You gotta wait
We
for us.
can talk about the
10:45.
engineer if you want, what I found out about an engineer, you wanna talk about
Do
that?
that. Go ahead.
So according to Sabra, engineering, if we would do this where we hire an engineer that knows gravel, culverts, bridges, and then we would wanna do a cost share with any cities involved, you'd need a guy that would know curb and gutter, pavement. And according to John Sabra, he said, so you're not gonna get anybody out of college cheap, because they specialize in a certain area, bridges, culverts, gravel roads, that kind of stuff. So you're gonna be looking for somebody with some experience, so you're probably looking at a cost of between $125,000 and $150,000 to get somebody,
For salary.
salary wise. Yep,
Plus
and that would be negotiable, obviously, with some benefits and other things that the county would provide, but, that way you could look for somebody that more than likely has done pavement, gravel, curb and gutter, bridges, culverts. The other thing that a guy has to take into consideration is, if they've ever worked with the state, that's the one bonus, and that's the one thing Morton County even still talked about, is they still use engineering firms to do those cost share type jobs, and so are you really saving a ton of money on an engineer when you have to pay? So if you have a guy that can work with the state and has done that in the firm that he's in, you might be okay doing that.
Yeah.
So you've got that to think about. The other thing is, we have no space in the courthouse for an office.
No.
And we really ain't a lot of space out at the shop either to put a guy out there, so
No,
you'd either have to see if, I think there's an office in City Hall, the old cop shop right beside Sharon's office, there's an office there, if the city would decide that they'd even wanna do this.
Is that that
I-
big white building?
Well,
Schumacher Road.
no, the community center.
Oh, okay.
The,
By the lumber company.
yeah.
This is Beck Communications calling to inform you of network maintenance
The other thing is, I haven't talked to Strasburg or Hazelton, like I said, I just asked for Linton's engineering costs. Last year, they spent $264,000 in engineering, the city of Linton.
264.
Well, and it's gonna be more again this year, cause we're doing an overlay project. 8th Street, I have no idea what they paid on 8th Street, probably $500,000, it was a 1.7 or 8 or $5 million project. So yeah, we'd have to find that out. I mean, there's a lot of ifs, but there is quite a few benefits when you think about it. I mean, having your own engineer, if it works out with the other cities and it's, you can find the right guy. This could be something where you can look for 2 years though, and not find somebody that wants to move to
Who's the company you talked to?
Sabra Engineering.
Sabra?
Sabra?
Sabra,
Yeah. I
SABRA.
have no idea how to spell it. So, how I got their name is, a really good buddy of mine that I was in the, guard with, he works for him. He does engineering stuff in the summer, road stuff, and he talked to him and got me this information, so. And that was just his opinion on what you'd wanna look for,
Who's
so
in
yeah.
charge of Strasburg? Can we get the numbers from Strasburg and Hazelton?
Well, we just have to call the,
yeah.
Who's the auditor there? Who's the?
well, Sonia Schumacher's the mayor down there, I don't know who the auditor is.
She's the one, Mary Wall from Wishick. Mary Wall from Wishick is the auditor for Strasburg right now.
Oh, really?
Mary Wall from.
Okay, well, I could ask her to get that, Mary's my cousin, so.
Judy used to be, I think.
And then Hazelton would be nice to,
Terry McDonald.
Who?
Terry
Terry
McDonald.
McDonald.
I can talk to her,
Can you?
yeah, why don't you? I mean, they might not even be at all interested, but,
right.
But at least you got the numbers. you
yeah.
know.
I didn't pitch anything to the city of Linton, like I said, I just talked to Sharon a little bit and, it's got some pros, it's probably got some cons, and it might be, I mean, it might be worth looking into, and maybe it'll fizzle out, maybe it makes sense.
Check into it, I guess.
The only thing I'll bring up is that I know a lot of times, especially with like federal aid projects and anytime there's special funding projects, a lot of times you can't engineer and build those projects yourself. You have to bid them out. And so there's gonna be times where even though you have an engineer on staff, like that big bridge project down by Larry Lyers, that has to go out for bids to engineering firms. I don't even know if we'd be eligible to bid it as ourselves, and so you're still gonna have incidental engineering and survey costs, and part of those engineering costs is probably survey work too. Well, if you don't have an engineer qualified to do surveying, you're still gonna be hiring survey companies to get you the information for your engineer to use. So a lot of times that gets lumped under the engineering, like even when we have them go out and stake these section lines for encroachment issues, like, unless you have an engineer, and then on top of it, if you have an engineer that's qualified to do that surveying, you're gonna have to equip them as well. They're probably gonna need a truck, and they're gonna need some equipment, otherwise you're gonna limit your ability to utilize that office anyway, and that's the only reason I advocate for the engineering firms is just cause they come staffed, and then they also have that knowledge. Like, you could have an engineer that doesn't understand the grant process, where these firms literally have people on staff, that's all they do, you know, so. I don't disagree, because when you look at the numbers, you're like, holy cow, between everybody in the county and the county itself, we're spending $700,000 in engineering, you could have your own. You're still gonna probably spend $200 to $300 of that if you're doing any specialty projects, and then on top of that, if you still have to hire surveyors, you're maybe only gonna save $100,000 or $200,000, which is maybe just enough to staff the office enough to save that $100,000. So, that's the only reason, I think it's awesome out of the box thinking. I think the trouble you'll find is most counties, short of Burley, Cass, Morton, some of them other ones that have the not only the tax base, but just the size of projects they like to handle and the things they can do. Like for us, I mean, there's a lot of years, if there's not a lot of grant or funding money available, we're not doing a lot of big projects, and so then now you have an engineer that's,
City of Florida.
well, I wouldn't say sitting, but then they're probably looking for projects, which that's not always the greatest thing. I mean, I know we always have work to do, but my point is like, I think unless you'd have to find someone multifaceted to the point where they'd be willing to go out and do survey work and stuff too. we'd be able to have them go out and catalog culverts and all that. I think there'd be a use for that, but you'd have to find someone that would be,
Yeah,
I mean, they'd wanna be a county engineer, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, they could have to be like, hey man, there's some days, you might have to just go out with our GPS unit and go shoot culverts and start making a master, like,
Yeah,
if you find someone like that, you could probably really find a use for it. I mean, as far as the office part, I think it'd make perfect sense to house them in the road department.
yeah.
I think the
agree.
best place wouldn't be in the courthouse or something, you'd be add a little office space in one of the shops, like in Hazelton or Linton here, or maybe even Strasburg, wherever you think you could make an office and be like, we want you with the road guys, cause that's where 90% of your work is gonna get done anyway, so, I mean, I think it's an awesome open-ended conversation, and I think it's something, if you could get more cities involved too,
Yeah,
that would.
and you'd find more of a dual surveyor engineer
Right.
type, I think it's, yeah, it's not an idea that's not feasible.
yeah, I think if we just continue to move on and like, you know, talk to Hazelton, talk to Strasburg if they're even interested.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't get the cities on board, then pretty much dries the idea out, because,
I mean, the only other avenue would be to do like we considered before too, is maybe you wanted to attract a county engineer that would wanna share duties with another county.
yeah, possibly.
You know, but a lot of them are doing what we're doing, they're hiring out engineering,
Yeah,
and in a lot of ways, I really think if you break down the numbers, you're gonna have a hard time justifying it though. I think it could work, but
It's tough.
it sounds like a lot of money until you start breaking down the services. I don't think it's as unaffordable as it looks.
Yeah,
And a lot of those dollars, let's just say we spend 300,000, 400,000 on engineering, depending on which project it was, some of those dollars were already matched or paid for through you know, I mean, it came out of our pocketbook, but that was already lumped into part of the project where they paid for this part of the engineering, and we only had to pay the preliminary or something, so we paid 300,000 out of our checking account, but we probably got reimbursed 100 of it or something. So I think if you really break down the numbers, we probably don't spend as much as it looks, even though
yeah,
on the surface it looks like a lot,
yeah,
so that.
yeah, we probably don't, that's where you gotta get buy-in from everybody else to make it.
Right, I think
feasible.
if you had several cities and possibly even joined it with another county or something like that, that you could probably really, if you found the right person with those combinations,
yeah,
it's,
the right word.
Yeah,
it's
we'll
possible.
just keep digging a little bit and maybe it dies, maybe it,
Yeah,
It's absolutely worth the conversation,
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
disagree with that at all, so.
yeah.
Get the numbers and we'll go from there, yeah.
I agree.
All agree?
Yep.
Anything else, guys, for discussion? Before, or we should probably wait till
I think you.
10
it's
o'clock,
close-
can we
it's
go
close-
ahead? We got about
it's close
7 minutes.
enough now, yeah.
I think we're-
Eric Holberg, the irrigation project is next on the agenda. Eric, if you wanna step up?
Step up on there. There's 2 chairs, but you're pretty close. Yeah. Thank you. Kind of starting again from where, you know, the project we're working on with Emmons and Logan. My name again is Eric Holberg, I'm the Economic Development Director over in Logan County. Started out, you know, I'm trying to make a large impact project. And that's the whole, that's where the idea for, bringing water out of the Missouri River and setting up and doing irrigation, and that's the basis of it, is to try and make a huge impact. You know, when if you look at, well, back in the 90s, we had a meeting out in Medora, and a speaker said, you know, you should just, from Bismarck west, you should just move everybody east and just make that a Buffalo Commons, because, and make it a big tourism, because it just isn't, it's dying. And then oil hit. You know, it was a big impact project, and it made a difference. If you look at Oaks, North Dakota, they're doing well, and that's, what they have is irrigation. So I called the state almost a year ago, maybe a year plus, and discussed the possibility of, would it be even possible to bring water out of the Missouri River and and use it for irrigation. And the director at the time said, absolutely, we would love to help and make this a, you know, this is a goal of ours, is to utilize the Missouri River more. And, so we being Economic Development, Logan County, City of Napoleon put in 35,000, hired more engineering, and they did a very, what I call it, a basic study, and in the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, the state, especially the staff, said, you know, we'd like you to give us more information than this. And on February 13th, More Engineering, about at the end of December, wrote a grant request to the State Water Commission for a $150,000 grant, of which we have to supply $50,000 of matching money. And on February 13th, they approved that $150,000. So, I think it's a good show that they're interested in making this happen. And, we're here today to try and eventually, you know, ultimately, Carl's is gonna tell you about the project and what the study and what we're gonna try and do, in the next 6 to 9 months with this $200,000 project. And then, how we move forward, but, ultimately, I'm gonna ask Logan County for $25,000, I'm gonna ask Emmons County for $25,000 of match, Carl from More Engineering will just kind of explain the study and where we're at, and what we're doing.
So, good morning, gentlemen. Just for context, I want to make sure to introduce myself and More Engineering in case you're not familiar. Carl Jackson with More Engineering. I'm in our Bismarck office. I'm our market leader for this region of the state. More Engineering, I wanted to just give you some context. We're a civil engineering, surveying, environmental firm. We're based in North Dakota. In Bismarck, we've got about 40 people. What we do is water resources projects, municipal infrastructure, transportation infrastructure. So we're kind of, the public works infrastructure is our specialty. And so, and we do a lot of work in this region for your county and your neighboring counties and the communities and whatnot. So I just wanted to give you some context if you have any questions for me, just so you understand who we are as a firm. I think I'll try to keep this brief initially here because I'd rather be available to answer questions and see what's on your mind and talk about the details. So, in brief, like Eric said, a project of this magnitude, everybody knows that if this thing gets traction and takes root, it has the potential to be a large magnitude project. And so, for a project of this magnitude, it wouldn't be able to move forward with funding assistance, with getting the right permits and all those sorts of things if you don't do your due diligence. And it starts with the basic study. This basic study is, and the subsequent phases, they're all a means to a very specific requirement from the State Department of Water Resources, from the Corps of Engineers and other permitting entities that they're requiring these steps before they can even support a project like this. And so the reason that we did the basic study initially was in order to even go to the Department of Water Resources and ask them for a cost share. They wouldn't want to consider it without this initial study. So we did the work, went to the Department of Water Resources. In theory, because everybody knows about the potential availability of Missouri River water in the state of North Dakota, in theory, the Department of Water Resources staff is very supportive of ideas like this. So once we gave them the results of this basic assessment, this basic study, they came back and said, this looks like a pretty good idea. Why don't you go ahead and submit a funding application for the next stage to take it to the next step. And so we worked with the Department of Water Resources to make sure we met the requirements of the state. And fundamentally, what the effort has been is to try to get cost share to minimize the local share. And so
Pull that up a little closer.
yes.
Just so we recorded so I can hear it.
Thanks. Sorry about that. So the idea is everything needs to be in collaboration with the stakeholders, whether it's starting with the property owners, the producers, the local governmental agencies that are gonna be affected by it, but then all the way up to the state agencies. Nothing like this would proceed without transparency and a collaborative effort. So, Department of Water Resources said, this is a good idea, we think we might be able to get you cost share to take this to the next step. So that's where this next step is. The end goal is to create, the end goal is that if this project has merit and support from the landowners, support from the other affected stakeholders locally, it cannot move forward if there's not a district formed, an irrigation district formed. That's the first step, the first fundamental process that the state of North Dakota requires to develop a project like this. You can't go to the state and say we want to create a district if you don't do some preliminary due diligence, some preliminary research, preliminary engineering, because everybody knows that the first question, anyone that's part of this, anyone, is the first question that's going to be on their mind is how much does it cost? How much is it going to cost me? If you want me to be involved in this, what's it going to cost me? You can't give them that good feedback if you don't do some due diligence. And so that's what this state cost share project is funding, is phase 1 and phase 2 to do what they call, formally it'll be called a feasibility study, and it's evaluating the feasibility of the potential to create a district so you can take it to the property owners to vote. So the process is going to be phase 1, phase 2 to create a feasibility study that can be taken to the landowners so they can vote on whether or not they want to form a district. And so by approving this project, the state, Logan County, Emmons County, nobody's saying we approve of a district. The district's gonna be formed. By approving this first step, it's funding assistance to generate the feasibility study so the district can be brought to a vote of the landowners. And so, initially, DWR, the state, told us when we first gave them an outline of what was proposed, initially, they said, we need more, we need you to get into more detail. And so we worked with everybody to go back to the state and say, all right, you're doing a 75% cost share, which we appreciate, but that 25% local share, if you're asking for a $500,000 study, that's a lot of local share for something that's right now just, an idea, a good idea. But that's asking for a lot of local cost share. So can you scale that back? And so we worked with the DWR to scale that back to this $200,000 study that's now has 75% funding from the state. And the state's calling it, and we agree, we're calling it phase 1. Let's get to the end of phase 1, which is essentially evaluating, it's a public engagement effort fundamentally to reach out to the property owners and gauge interest. Because once we gauge interest, then we can run those preliminary numbers on what's it gonna cost, because we can then start to evaluate how many acres are even irrigable. What's it gonna cost to develop a system within this potential footprint of what the district could be. And then once we know the water demand, then we can look at the source. Is it going to be one intake? And presumably if that's in the river, if that's one intake, or do we have to look at 2 intakes to feed different parts of this potential footprint of a district? We just don't know any of those answers yet. And so this first phase is to get up to the property owners and ask, who's interested in even having this evaluated on their property? Who even wants this evaluated? So we can start to estimate the demand. And then we can look at estimating, where might the water source come from? And do we have enough water supply to meet that demand, for just a couple months out of the year, maybe irrigating? Or do we have to look at storage? Or, all these questions that are gonna contribute to the total project cost. We don't have answers to that because we don't know what the demand is going to be, because we don't know what the interest is. So you back it into this phase 1, is truly to just engage with the landowners, engage with the stakeholders to understand where the interest is, so we can estimate things, so we can go back to the state and say, okay, we have a better feel for what the potential cost of this whole thing could be, are you willing to fund at 75%, are you willing to fund phase 2? We hope that this, I mean, the work's not rocket science, it's just a more a matter of, how willing folks are to engage and help provide feedback, and also just the time constraints of reaching out to all the different landowners and trying to get their input on this. And so that's the big variable in how much time this will take, is how those conversations go when people are prepared to give us feedback, if they're ready to make a decision on that or not. Maybe I'll just pause for now and see if there are any questions or anything. Hopefully I gave you an overview of what we're doing, but if I need to clarify anything.
Has there been any contact in Emmons County with landowners? Because it sounds like they have very little knowledge of this project. Any
It's very
landowners?
new. And that's what that's what the $200,000 will do. We'll start having meetings, inviting the landowners and saying, here's what we're thinking of doing and here's what we're trying to do. Would you be interested if it's cost effective? And I have had people from Emmons County stop me, talk to me, call me, email me. So I have had some small, I mean, half a dozen people have said, you know, I've got an email from one guy, I guess I could look to see what his name is, but he said, let me know what I can do, I'd love to help. I've had 2 people stop me and say, you know, we'd love to be able to, we've looked at irrigation on our land, but, so let me know if I can help and what we can do. But there will be at this moment in time, there will be very few people in Emmons County that know what we're doing, because we just started it. This is, you know, really it's, when we first started doing this project in Logan County, it's a big undertaking. You know, you gotta get a study done, you gotta get your farmers together, they gotta sign, that they're interested, and you gotta have somebody that tracks the farm. You know, you get a bunch of, there's people that have land, and it's under an LLLP, and 6 people have to sign that say, you know, it's a, getting, what I've seen in Logan County is there's a lot of interest, but then you gotta get the details of everybody that's signed, but at this moment in time, I'm gonna say that Emmons County farmers have had very little knowledge of this, because when the state said we want more information, I said, well, then we might as well bring Emmons County on board, and we might as well, because we might as well, we're coming through it, you know, it just makes sense. So at this point in time, I would say that they don't have much knowledge, but that's what this that's what the next 6 to 9 months is gonna be about, is trying to explain. They'll be down, we'll have meetings, we'll buy them dinner, and we'll, you know, say this is what we're trying to do, and we'll try and get buy-in.
Because in this county, there is a course at irrigation.
There
There is a footprint.
There is a footprint, and that helps. And I, you know, you could probably speak on, I think you're the president of Horsehead, aren't you?
Correct.
So, if I'm not wrong, it's mainly down by the river.
Right now, that's where we're at, basically is along the river.
Right.
And I think southwest of Linton here.
Yes.
That irrigation that's,
And
okay.
when you
that's
look at,
included in it right now.
and I don't have, you can go on, and NDSU has, I mean, there's quite a bit of land outside, away from the river, that's beautiful irrigation land in Emmons County. I mean, Logan County has 400 square miles of potential irrigation land. I think Emmons has more. Your ability, your land, you have more land than Logan that's potentially irrigable, once you get away from the river. Go ahead, sorry.
What are the economics of irrigation at this point with commodity prices what they are? Does it pay? Does it pencil out?
Irrigators can tell us that a little bit.
I don't think we can really answer that because we don't know what the project's gonna cost yet.
Right.
And those costs would be spread out amongst the producers within that developed area.
Yeah.
Well, when you add up
The way I see it.
your pivots and everything else, cause the farmer has to pay that, that's not in your deal, right? He
The
has to
only way
pay
it would work is with specialty crops, with onions, potatoes, vegetables.
I've had one person at a meeting we were at say, you're gonna need potatoes or something in this, you know, to make it pay. Well, and that's fine, I mean, you know, there's also, I think it's almost too early to talk about it, or to answer that right now, the economics of irrigation, because it just depends on who pays for what. You know, there's a pipeline that has to come through, and there's irrigation, there's pivots that have to be put up. What is the, you know, and who, there's questions that we have to answer throughout as we go through here.
Well, you'd be saying then that the state or the government would be paying for most all of this then?
We don't know
This
yet.
project.
You know, 75%. And
So then it wouldn't stand on its own.
I'm not following that statement.
I mean, if each one of us had to buy our own pivots and fund this all ourselves, it would never pay for itself, right?
And the pipelines and everything,
Right.
yeah, we need cost share.
So the taxpayer has to help pay for this, is what you're saying?
There's a fund, the Water Commission gets funding from oil, and that's part of the, and that's part of what they do, is they provide cost share for projects like this.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, there's cost share.
Right.
This would become a touchy matter, wouldn't it, on these 2 6-foot diameter pipe, which would be used for possibly food production for humans, for us. And if they carved through with a 6-foot tube pipe, 2 6-foot diameter pipe, they would possibly use eminent domain, would they not? To get these pipe carved through my land, his land, and we can't irrigate our land to get that water source to Logan County.
We are not even close to being at that point.
But I'm just
Well,
questioning that,
we have
just
to
an
know to
item
make
brought
a
up.
decision though.
What's that?
We have to know this to make a decision.
But we're so far, we're on the side of, I mean, you're way out here, and we're not even here yet. I can't answer, there's no way we can answer that question, sir, at this moment in time. I mean, it's a project that we are very, on the very preliminary start of the project, and the emphasis behind this project is to make a large-scale impact to the areas, so the future of the population future, the economic future of the areas are growing rather than slowly declining. And, you know, and it's just we're trying to make an impact for the future of the areas. And really, it has the potential of doing some great things if we can make this, of moving it forward. It has a future of making this wonderful. You know, if you look at adding 100 bushels an acre just on corn, and you know, the amount of acres that potentially, and then you take that times $4 and you run that through the, I don't know if you're familiar with, you know, if you take the economic turn of a dollar and how many times it goes through a community is about 7. And if you take the number, between the 2 counties, it's about $1.5 billion of extra generation that could possibly, if we could get this project done, I mean, you're looking at an impact that would be substantial.
So we already have an oversupply of corn, now you're gonna make an oversupply of corn.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and a few years ago, we were short corn. And they're also, by 2035, they're looking at having 90 million gallons of ethanol available for the airline industry, and we're currently at 30 million, just for cars. And you add 90 million bushels, or 90 million gallons to the equation, and you're gonna have a severe shortage. So I mean, I don't guess I wanna get into I don't know the future, but,
Nope.
No, I don't disagree with the potential. It would be there, that's for sure, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the potential is huge.
Yeah.
And, you know, as public servants and as, you know, and I'm the economic development coordinator, it's kind of my job is to try and, to make, you know, to secure the future of the area. And we're doing a nice job with the mom and pop stores, and we got nice little things happening, but if you really wanna make an impact, it's gotta be a big impact. I mean, and this has the potential of being a monster impact. And it would secure Emmons and Logan County into the future. And, you know, for a $25,000 investment to try and secure the future, it's not a bad investment. It really isn't.
Eric, one thing I have to, probably wouldn't need to state, but I will, is it seems like Emmons was an afterthought. When I look at this map that Moore has, you know, that we got our 2 meetings ago.
Was the last meeting, yeah.
Well, I think I tried to touch on that. When we first started the project, I mean, I'm a Logan County economic development person.
Yeah.
So, when we started the project, and we looked at the amount of effort this is gonna take, let's just stay with Logan County. And then, when the state started saying, hey, we need more information. And if you look at the state statute, in the past, the Water Commission staff had they had to do a lot of what we're doing. That was in their ballpark. And what they've done is they've said, we're gonna make you guys do it. We'll help fund it, but we're gonna have this. And at that point in time, and honestly, since we've started this, there's been 2 or 3 entities that have started talking, hey, if they're gonna do it, hey, we want water too. And you know, it's not only gaining traction for this area, but it's gaining traction on other side, on you know, other areas. So it's not, there's more, since we started this project, there are more people and more entities looking at that water. So it's a, I think the traction is becoming there. So I just think, and I'm gonna say it again, the economic impact, if we can make this successful, the economic impact of this project will secure the future of Emmons and Logan. It really will. It's a major impact. The amount of corn that we would develop and the amount of more bushels, we can go out and attract industry. Now we can attract an industry, an ethanol plant maybe. There's the ability to do things that we would have, that we don't right now. What's that?
More CO2 lines.
So, Eric, I'm just gonna interrupt you for a second, 'cause I just got a couple questions here before we get too off track, but do you have any commitments from any landowners, like in Logan or Emmons County?
Yes,
On paper.
yes.
Do you have any in Emmons?
No, that's what we have to start now.
Okay.
Okay.
And are those commitments, are those from current irrigators?
No.
Or are they from people, like prospective irrigators?
Perspective mainly. Some of them are current and have more land that they would like to, but to get, if you want to irrigate your land, it's not gonna come from ground source water. The state just said, we're pretty much done. We've peaked, but if we can bring Missouri River water, let's go. But we need to set up meetings, call your landowners and say, we're having a meeting, we're gonna introduce the project, are you interested? That's the next, that's what we're gonna do right now, is to find out how much interest there is in Emmons County. I think it'll be quite a bit, to be honest with you.
Well, cause I mean, the struggle that I'm just having with this is that, I mean, if you don't, you're asking us for $25,000, right?
Correct,
To be a part of the cost share, so you can move the project forward.
correct.
Which 25,000 isn't some insurmountable number that's just gonna break the county, win or lose, but, I mean, it would be nice on our end, like with most projects, usually you have some stakeholders already kind of invested, either financially, or at least there's just a list of people, or there's just a group of people that are coming in saying that this is valuable, because that's where, like with us, it's like, if you have no interest at this point in Emmons County, it's pretty hard for me as a commissioner to be like, well, let's spend 25,000 and find out if there's any interest, because, I mean, to be honest with you, I picked up the phone the other day and called 2 irrigators that I know, just 2 of them, and I don't wanna say they're against the project, but it just kinda almost seemed like they're not really even in love with irrigating, and a lot of those guys that are irrigating already kinda have a system built, and I don't know if a pipeline would really bring a lot of value. And I'm not trying to discredit the project or say that it's not gonna have any value. My point is just, the 2 people that I thought would maybe have a pretty, good opinion of like, oh, that would be great, it just kinda seemed like they were very neutral on it, like if it happened, I don't even know if they would participate from the phone call I had. So, I guess the question I have is, wouldn't it make more sense to either try and seek out that small additional financial support from the landowners, or
Who
if
pays
you're
for that?
What do you mean, pitch for what?
Well, that's
Well,
what,
I mean, anytime we do anything, anytime you do to seek out, somebody has to seek them out, somebody has to make phone calls, somebody has to go see them, somebody has to spend money to do that, and it costs money to seek them out, and that's what we're doing here. That's the whole purpose, we're gonna seek them out and say, are you interested?
right, and that's where I'm saying that it's hard for me as a commissioner to wanna agree to spend $25,000 to seek out if landowners want a project that's gonna be hundreds of millions of dollars, to run a pipeline all the way over to Logan County, I would imagine has to be $50-100 million obviously you don't know, cause you haven't done your engineering study, but let's just wing it here, it's gonna be a big project, right?
Could be.
Tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the scenario.
Could
I
Logan
just,
County support it alone?
What's that?
Could Logan County support this dream alone without Emmons County? Other than you have to carve through Emmons County with a pipeline?
Yeah, the answer is probably yes, but I don't, I'm,
But Dan, I think it would be more like when rural water comes through,
Yeah,
everybody
it's-
sits on the fence until it's built and it's done,
And they all wanna
and now it's working, I'd like to add on, well,
Yeah,
you can only put so much water through a
Yeah.
pipe, so I think this is kind of the same concept behind this. This isn't a commitment by any of these landowners, it's just, we need an idea what the size of the scope of this project is gonna be. And I don't think Emmons County was really an afterthought. As they got into it more and seen we're going through it anyway, I think the reason I'm probably here as a horsehead is we would like to work with these guys. Yes, we don't know what's out there until we do this survey, until we get, and like he said, you don't know until people don't know about it. People in Emmons County really haven't heard about it yet. So it's hard to know if people in Emmons County are for it or against it. As far as economically, that all gets tied in later when you decide the size and the amount of people that are gonna benefit. And yes, today corn, and I irrigate, that is to me, not a very good example because there's so many more things you can do than just raise corn with irrigation. Yes, right now, we don't have a lot of this infrastructure, we don't have an ethanol plant, but like he said, you don't know what will come till after you know what's out there for people to participate in. So, yes, it's a big project. I just think we don't know what the next step is, we gotta do one step at a time. We do the first step, then we'll decide on the next step.
right, but how many members are in the Horsehead Irrigation District roughly?
It's a small group, it's, because our concept of the Horsehead irrigation is a lot different concept than what these guys have. Our concept, basically why we formed 30 years or whatever ago, was project power. That was our main, nothing to do with pipeline, nothing to do with delivering water. As an irrigation district, you know how it is, an individual goes to the government, you don't have much traction. The bigger group you get, the more people you get involved, the better chance of acquiring something. So our idea was to get project pumping power, basically, so.
And you couldn't get good rates right at that time?
Well, just whatever we could get through the co-op, yeah.
Right.
And we still haven't got our, you all know Herb Grant's, his platform has always been, it was promised to us in the PIC Sloan Act in 44 or whatever it was. And yes, it has been, has that ever materialized? It hasn't yet. We get one step closer, we think we're almost there, and then something else comes along. Then we work on it again, and a project like this, that would be one of the steps to making it work. If you get a project pumping power rate to help with the economics of this, it's gonna be a huge factor.
So the question, excuse me, that he asked, how many guys there are on the Horsehead? 5, 6 guys?
I don't think, maybe 20. There's not a big number.
No, but I guess, the reason for my question and the reason for going down this road is just because, I'll just be upfront with you, I'm not against the project. I don't really see a bunch of issues. It's gonna be between you and landowners if you can get across it, between you and stakeholders if you can get them to sign up. I really don't see a problem with it, but if we're in this early of a stage, it's like, I don't see any reason why the members of the Horsehead or prospective people that have contacted you or all those can at least either be compiled to a list that says, yes, John Doe is willing to commit to the Emmons Logan Irrigation District pipeline project. You don't even need to necessarily get money from them, but if you're gonna get money from us, I would like to see a list of 5, 10, 20 landowners that at least have at least an interest to it. Or the same thing would go with whether maybe you collected a small portion of those funds and that would meet us halfway or something, I guess, cause that's kind of where my concern is at with it, because I sat in these meetings and I heard Mike Brandenburg tell me that the Emmons Logan Wind Project was gonna save Main Street in Hazelton and Lytton, and I haven't seen that, so that when the term of like the economic future of an area depends on this, it's like.
I'm not saying it depends on it, if I did, I'm sorry, but the economic impact of this versus, I'm not a huge wind proponent, but it's not even, you can't even mention the same breath. You look at, you take 4,000, it could be upwards to 4,000 pivots. You take 4,000 pivots out of 130 acres a pivot, times an extra 100 bushels an acre, times $4 an acre, $4 a bushel, and then you take that number times 5 or 7. There's more trucks going in and more trucks going out because there's more product. You're not growing a 100 bushel crop, you're growing a 225 bushel crop. So you got twice as many trucks going out, you got twice as much fertilizer going on, you got people you need to hire, you need another combine, it's just more activity.
I don't disagree with that. There's definitely a possibility of that, but my sticking point is, I would like to hear that from a half a dozen or a dozen Emmons County farmers. Like, that's cause the 2 that I reached out to in the limited time that I had to think about it, they didn't really share your opinion. I'm not gonna say it was negative, I'm not saying they didn't want the project, but they had more questions than they did necessarily positive reviews of the idea, and that's where I'm gonna take that small sample size as a little bit more leading to continuing down my road of wanting to see commitment from Emmons County farmers before I would vote to invest $25,000 in it, or I would like to see you get those funds from those landowners. That's where I'm at. It's not about being against the project of any kind, but I don't feel like 25,000 is an insurmountable amount that you couldn't get from stakeholders that were serious about the project, because I don't know a lot about irrigating other than the general basics, but I would have to say even to set up a pivot's gotta be
250.
I've talked to a couple guys also, like Aaron did. I won't mention their names, but they indicated also. It's a different breed of man to run pivots, and you better have an appetite to work.
There's no question about that, sir. But it takes land that produces,
Right.
on a good year, 90 bushels of corn, because it's sandy and it doesn't have the staying power, to 225. It takes that value of land from a couple $1,000s an acre to possibly $10,000 an acre. It changes the ability of that land to produce a great crop. But, Aaron, I've had 4 off the top of my head, people from Emmons County that said, let us know what we can do, because we're interested.
Would they be interested in stepping up and helping you fund
Absolutely.
on the feasibility studies?
Financially?
Yeah.
I didn't ask them that. I mean, what I've tried to do, there's gonna be a huge commitment on the farmer side. If we get this project done, there's gonna be a huge financial commitment by the farmer side. I mean, there's $250,000 per pivot. There's upwards to $1 billion worth of investment between the two, Emmons and Logan. You know, this could be a huge project, and I've tried to keep it on a. I'm trying to keep the farmers, the growers, from not to ask them for money at this stage, just because I think as an economic, I mean, I'm keeping it now as my thought, and I could be, this is different, it's a different thought than yours, obviously. My thought has been, this is an economic development project that we are pursuing to try, and therefore I'm trying to do the economic development entities to bring, you know, to do the initial studies. I didn't want to go to, I resisted going to the farmers at this stage, because I wanted, you know, there's so many questions. There's questions that we can't answer at this moment in time, and it's a process of studying. There's gonna be a point in time where we're gonna say, okay, guys, we're at this stage of the game. We need you guys to commit.
Well, going to the taxpayers of Emmons County and asking for this money would be kind of like going to your 5 producers, only you're asking people that are never going to use this to help pay for it.
It's so, on an economic development level, when you have a sales tax money, and you have, in Logan County, we have the four mills to support economic development. That's what those funds are for, is to invest in your community, to invest in your county, to try and develop it. It's when you, and I've had conversations with Logan County commissioners, and it is, if you have an asset and you don't invest in that asset, it will die. It will fall apart. If you own a house and you don't put a new roof on it once in a while, you don't do this once in a while, it will fall apart. And what you're doing, what I'm asking you to do, is to invest in the asset that you control, the county. I'm at, you know, and that's what economic development is all about, is to try and take and do some strategic investments, just like a bridge. You invest in bridges, so that you can move so that the county, the private sector can move goods and services throughout the county. Economic development is an investment in your county to try and, you know, to go from this level of economic activity to this level of activity. And then somebody's house, you know, if all of a sudden you got this level of activity, my house is worth more. I've got more kids in the school, I've got this happening. And that economic development is an investment it's an investment. People look at it, well, you're asking me to just throw $25,000 as a grant to you guys. And I think it's an investment. And if you don't invest in your bridges, and you don't invest in your roads, and you don't invest in your house, it will fall apart. And you look at many areas in the state, especially, some of the areas that don't have oil and stuff, you look at your population, which direction is it going? Do you know?
Oh, in every each area of the state.
Since I can go back to 1980. I graduated from Napoleon, North Dakota. We had 66 kids in my class. You're lucky to have 20 right now.
Well, the population of North Dakota is going up though.
North Dakota. We're at North Dakota. I'm trying to say, I'm asking you to invest it's an investment in your county. That's how I look at it. And that's how some of my county commissioners look at it. It's an investment. We need to try and look out in the future and make an investment so that the grocery stores and everything's here. 5, 10, 20, 30, we're not, you guys will celebrate, what, your 125th, or you just did?
Did.
I'm hoping you guys are around for another 125. But you gotta invest in that. You as public officials need to look at yourself and say, we need to make sure, it's not just about this today. We need to look at 25, 35, 100 years from now. How do we invest, what do we do now to make sure that we're still here in 125 years? It's a big, and it's a real deal. I mean, that's all we're trying to do here is to say, let's make an investment in our area to see if, it's a little early, I think, to go to landowners and say, cough up 25 grand. I think it is. I just think it is. I think this is an economic development project that has to be brought along and invested in, and at a point in time, we go to the producers and say, hey, we're at the 8th hour, 9th hour, 12th, 11th hour, and we're knocking on the door to make this project happen. We need a commitment from you, financially.
Excuse me, Dave, you got
I
something?
just got, as a landowner, what's the proposed route for this? Do you have any idea so far, which part of the county it's gonna run in?
Well, I've got a map.
We got a map.
Very preliminary, guys, very
That's the
preliminary.
fall, right? That just,
I think it depends on where the acres get signed.
And where is that map, cause I can't see it, obviously.
Yeah,
Very preliminary. That was just a very preliminary deal. We're
Somewhere between the Hazelton Boat Dock and the
Yeah.
JT Ranch,
Yeah.
depending on,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the
for
neighborhood.
an intake. That's just a
So
thought,
it'd be south of 34 then?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, their corridor has it going north possibly too, but I mean, basically it's in the neighborhood of the Hazelton Boat Dock right, I mean, it's a pretty good corridor because obviously there's several locations, I'm assuming.
Well,
I mean, the big issue.
I'm north of 34, and I'm just telling you right now, you're gonna have a hard time crossing our land. Cause we're cattle country up there anyway, and we're tired of being pushed around by the CO2 pipeline, and I guarantee you're not crossing mine. And I'll have a lawyer ready. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just telling you, cause I talked to a lot of our neighbors, and there's no irrigating land up where we live. So it'd be benefiting people, like they said earlier, we get no benefit out of it. Just telling you.
I'm not, I guess, I'm not, we're not.
Well, you don't know what we put up with, we just don't want our land dug up again.
I understand that.
Okay, I'll just add real quick about that map,
Good.
because Nora's name is on that map.
Yeah.
There's no way we can pretend to understand what some of the property owners have been through but despite the fact that we won't claim to understand it, we're very sensitive to it, and so when we create a map like that, I was personally at that table saying, you guys don't even think about putting a line on paper before we talk to anyone. Make it a giant bubble, just make it a bubble, maybe the bubble wasn't even big enough. But there's been zero thought put into where this pipeline or intake will go, because it's premature, we're not there yet, and so.
You basically need this study to kind of narrow that down, not, that's the step you're trying to take is in order to even answer the question of where a pipeline might go is gonna be dependent on the study, cause that's where you're gonna start bringing your
Right.
topography into play, you know, any other hydrology issues and trying to pick, right, the path of least
Because-
resistance,
and
is
we
that
need to hear
fair?
Because on the other side of the table, the state
You know,
is
we don't wanna
saying,
offset anybody.
what do you think?
We're not here to
Give
do
us an
that.
idea, tell us what your idea is, and we're saying, we're not quite sure, and they say, well, give us a map.
I mean, that's a big part of the study is gonna be the placement of the pipeline, not, I
Right.
mean, and obviously the ability to even intake water from the river, where at,
Right.
elevations,
zero
water
thought,
flows, right.
Zero conversation about
Yeah,
that, so the
right.
bubble should have been, maybe been bigger, but it's intended to be a big, broad bubble, cause we just don't know.
Right. But in this case with water, that would be used with easements. Eminent domain would come into play. With water. Am I right or wrong? You're an engineer.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not even sure I'm able to comment on that, because the words eminent domain, in all the conversations we've ever been part of, have never come up until this meeting today. And so, it's not even, I think it's just so early on that nobody's even thought about that.
Cause it's a sour taste in a lot of people.
Again, I won't
That
pretend to
almost
understand what
surface.
you've all been through, but I can tell you that the disposition of our people is that the very first thing that, the first priority here is engage with the property owners, engage with the landowners, and get their input before we make any assumptions. Do not make an assumption. So, I'm sorry I can't comment on that, but I don't think I can.
So when are you looking for a financial commitment from Emmons County?
I was hoping today, but it's not sounding good. Honestly, I mean.
I'm just gonna tell you, Eric, like I said, I'm gonna just be out in the open, I'm not against this project, but my commitment as a county commissioner, I'm just gonna tell you my stance on things, is I don't think the government should invest in things that the private sector doesn't really want to.
Exactly.
That's where my avenue of wanting you to approach the landowners is I want 15, 20 people in this room going, this is a no-brainer, we have to have it, it's absolutely in, or the conversation would be that, hey, we met with 20 guys, they all were willing to give us $2,000, we got 20,000 of it, would you give us the last 5 so we can make this work or something, so you're at least part of it, you're buying in? It's a whole different conversation than coming in and asking us, before we really have any commitment, knowing that the few people that I did talk to about irrigation, again, didn't really seem to be proponents. I'm not gonna say they were against it, that would be totally unfair, but none of the 2 major irrigators that I talked to were like, oh, this is a great idea, you guys would be dumb not to do it. They were more like, I don't know if it really is gonna make a difference, and so again, that's where my opinion of going, I only talked to 2 guys, but I was 2 for 2 on the whole, it really didn't seem like the value was there, so I'm basically, just individually as myself, not speaking for the board, would be challenging this project to get 10, 20 people somehow committing, whether it's financially or coming to these meetings, signing a petition. Or, I mean, whether it's emailing all
But
of
the
us.
petition is part of what this is. This, you know, you're asked, number one, I work for Logan County.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I don't spend a lot of time in Emmons County working. So I don't, you know what I mean? I did what you're asking of me, I did in Logan. I will say that. You know, I talked to people and, you know, this was, but, Logan County pays my salary, so to speak.
Understood.
So, I don't, you know, for somebody to say, you should be over here finding, I don't get paid to do that, you know?
I know, but you're doing it right now. I mean, you are at Emmons County trying to gain money, and I'm not picking on you, Eric,
They will do this, Eric.
I get that.
This is what they're gonna get paid to do.
But you did say you had an Emmons County landowner that did say, or several of them that were like, how can I help? that would be a great job for them guys to go around and be like, hey, go get 4 or 5 year neighbors.
do
go
some
get-
canvassing
I
out
I mean, again, cause I'll
Yeah.
bring up the fact that I made 2 phone calls in the span of about an hour and a half. And I know I'm a county commissioner and I receive salary, so to act like I didn't get nothing is not fair, but I did it at an earpiece while I was literally doing a service call. I contacted some guys and we talked about them while I was unplugging a sewer, just for public reference. But I'm just saying that it didn't take a lot of time for me to reach out and get opinions from 2 people that I knew and considered experts, at least on the subject. And so, even if that's some volunteer time from someone interested in the project from Emmons County, not specifically you, I think if this project of this magnitude, with this value, that can be sold this easily to people, it shouldn't be very hard to get 10, 20 people together. Even if it's not a financial commitment, even if it's just a letter of intent, like, yes, I fully intend to, you know, be a part of this project, or at least look into it to the best I can. I mean, as commissioners, at least if we have something along that line, it makes it a lot easier than you just telling us that.
I don't
this
think
is
it'd be
your
tough to get 5, 10 people to sign saying, hey, we'd be interested.
Right, and then
I
that's
don't think that'd
exactly,
be-
I mean,
I
that'd be
don't-
the absolute minimum that I'd at least be looking for. If not a financial
Yeah.
commitment, then at least,
I mean,
it'd be nice to see some of them people in a room today, like, you know, they have a meeting going on, just telling us like, hey, yeah, we're a part of this, we want it, we, you know, and selling us, you know, on some of that. I mean, that's where if you're asking for a commitment, at least from me, myself, I'm gonna have a hard time doing it just on 1 or 2 individuals and an engineer. No offense to you guys, and I'm not even in disagreement to what you're saying, but I'm just, my duty and responsibility is to the constituents, and I'm on a further level, I don't think the government's very good at economic development, so that's where I would argue that, if you've got citizens that really
I would
think they wanna
disagree
be
with that statement. I
stakeholders,
would disagree with that statement completely, Eric.
well, then you can, that's fine, but
Yeah, I mean, because the government has, you're probably looking at what I would be considered the government. And there's a number of different ways of doing economic development. One is to develop a project. You look at resources that you have in your area, and as a public entity, you say, you know, we've got these resources, let's put a study together and let's do this, let's bring it together. There's another way of doing economic development. A private sector guy comes in and says, hey, I wanna put up I wanna invest X amount of dollars in here, and I don't need any help, I don't need anything, I just wanna buy this piece of land and build a store. That's economic development. There's another way of doing economic development and there's multiple, but there is, if you look at the world, and I've been in economic development since 1987 was my first job, and I do it part-time now, but there absolutely is, economic development absolutely can be developed from the ground, from the public, and saying, we have an asset, let's develop that. And this is how it's done. You look at it and you say, we have a river that's sitting right there, and we have land sitting right here, or we have minerals, we have oil, let's develop it. And it's a form of economic development, absolutely is. And the government on a public level, city level, county level, you know, JDA level, absolutely does look at projects and say, and resources and say, how do we develop this? Let's do a study. It's done, you know, it's done a lot, actually.
Eric, I wanna go back, Carter made a statement, with rural water. Similar, me and my father went out and we canvassed a lot of the area, and then they got more landowners that were interested in the rural water project. And we went around, and they went around, and pretty well canvassed the whole community that the system, you know, would probably be willing to help or broaden if enough would. And then we asked, they asked, I think, for $50 or $100 for each person. And if the project didn't go, they'd get refunded. And then they took, I know my dad did, he and another person, they took that list and actually went to Washington and got a grant from Wittenberg at that time, helped him a lot. But that's what Aaron's saying, you know, we just want something to say that there's people that, really are interested in Emmons and wanna go with it, you know, so. And I can see what you're saying, that you work in Logan, but maybe you can round somebody up in Emmons to go to work for you, you know? And if you bring that bunch in here, I'm sure we'll actually be more than willing to work with it. And I appreciate Carter's comments too. And he said Horsehead would be, you know, interested in it. And, I mean, that's positive. So, that's my feeling, you know. Maybe do a little more, work on it. And, if we got enough interest, I don't think, you know, any of us are gonna even, but I see what you're saying also, you're into the start of it, so, but.
It's so much in the infancy of this project, and, you know, and we need to start the project so we can have discussions with people and farmers and people that, you know, say you're not crossing my land, where you're, but, you know, we need those discussions. And, so.
You're gonna have to get some guys on the ground in Emmons County.
Yeah.
From what I see.
I was hoping somebody other than me would do that, you know, I don't work in Emmons County, so I was hoping that, it would be, and it's, but I can, there's 3 or 4 people that I've talked to, 4 or 5, that have said, you know, let me know what I can do. So I'll reach out to them, and I'll say, I need a dozen, 10 signatures of just, you know, and I'll put together an email saying, or a sheet that they can sign saying, you know, I would like further information, I'd like to work on this project and move it and see what, and be a part of it. It just
carry a lot of weight.
Yeah, I mean, and I honestly, I mean, that probably, it won't take any time at all to get that, to be honest
And how
with
many
you.
acres it consists of, probably.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
And yes, you has that. Like I said, you've got at least 400 square miles over here of irrigable land. I mean, it's just, I've seen the, you can look at it on the water commission, it's there, and it's over towards, I think it's north.
It's northwest of Linton.
Northwest and, yeah, north and northwest.
Lighter soil a little.
Yeah, and it's a lot.
Horsehead Flat is huge.
It's a lot. That area over there, I think I'm pointing in the right direction. You've got a lot of soil and a lot of ability. So it's for me to garner and have those 3 or 4 guys. I mean, there's 4 signatures right there. So to get another 5 or 6, I don't think it would take me long. I will put that work in.
Yep, okay, we appreciate that due diligence.
I will do that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Do you want me, if I get those signatures, do you want me to turn them in, or do you want me to come back?
Well, we'd much rather see the guys here.
Yeah, see you guys here back in here.
But, yeah, well, we can talk about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to.
If you get those signatures, chances are in the next meeting, people are gonna show up.
No,
You're
sure.
gonna get
With
sitting
the-
for it, so maybe it would be best for you to come back.
Okay.
Yep, and then
I
have.
mean, I know you like getting donuts over here, so. Don't you? No, I cause I think that's, once there's a little bit more buzz going around here, you're gonna get
Yeah.
those against it and those for it, so,
Yeah, I mean,
it would be.
what I found in Logan County, when I first started this was, and I'll leave out the explicit, the verbiage, but there is no effing way that the state is gonna, you know, bring water out of the Missouri River. The project will never happen. And now, since we've gotten a $150,000 commitment, and the state has come out and people have talked to the state and said, hey, we're gonna do everything we can to help make that project happen. Now my Logan County farmers are saying, yeah, let's get this rolling.
Yeah.
So my first problem was convincing people that this project could happen if we work at it and develop it. They just didn't believe it.
Well, they're
Now-
digging a canal, aren't they?
What's
On
that?
the old McCluskey Canal, they're continuing it over to the Red River, are they not?
They did that already, yeah. I mean,
Is that totally completed? No.
No, it's still under construction. That is moving forward.
Is it gonna be completed, you feel, or is it gonna stop like the old McCluskey?
My impression right now is that there's additional funding in place to keep it moving and finish it, yeah.
My concern when we talked, you and I, when you called me the other day, was there's a lot of landowners that just don't want their land disturbed again, and that's where I told you, that's gonna be probably a bigger problem than finding 20 people that are saying, yeah, I'm interested, is finding 20 people that say, sure, dig 100-foot trench in my land and lay water pipes. That's gonna be the uphill battle.
And then they're
Emmons
gonna
County,
use-
in my opinion.
and that's part of the planning. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't wanna
absolutely.
upset anybody. I mean, I have no desire to upset anybody.
Yeah.
My whole desire, putting my economic development hat on, is to say, cause I've watched, I grew up in Napoleon, North Dakota, 1,200 people were in Napoleon, we're down to 700. Something has to make an impact to change that direction. And I'm hoping I'm hoping to be a part of making an impact. That's all I'm trying to do, guys. I'm just trying to help make an impact for the future.
Excuse me, there's a lady sitting out there who'd like to speak. Go ahead.
Do people realize they're not gonna really improve the population when all the farmers are old like us and we're gonna die? And some big guy is gonna come in, one person to take over 10 or 12 farms. Where are these people coming from that are gonna build these towns back up?
I think that same question could have been asked in the 90s with Watford City. I really think I think that same question was asked then.
You're talking about a big area, not one town. You're gonna get Hazelton, Linton, and all these people built up. What you're gonna get in here are probably not the working class.
We don't know that, man. I don't wanna be negative, but I mean, all you can do is try. You know, if you do nothing at all, we know the direction we're headed.
But we're going that way anyway, because.
Right, and I'm trying to change that direction. I'm too much of an optimist to say, you know, I can't do anything, we're not gonna do anything, let's just let it die. I'm too much of an optimist for that.
If the government was not included in this farming thing in the first place, you'd have little farmers.
Yep.
But you can't compete with somebody that has 20,000 acres when you have 800.
I don't disagree with that,
Well,
but I can't change that.
well, then don't change this either, because it's not great, but it's the best you're going to get.
But I do know that if we do nothing at all, I do know the direction we're going. You can look at the map, and it's this way. That's, I mean, it's just, I'm too much of an optimist, and I have too much of a love for this area to not do anything.
Okay,
You're dreaming.
we better leave it at that, we better move on. We got other people on the agenda.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. What did you want to bring by this rock right now?
Yeah, I've been up for 11 o'clock, I'm here rustic.
Okay, we'll bring the Titus rock. Leon, if you want to speak, you and your wife next, you're on the agenda.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
We're here to ask the county if
You want to introduce yourself, Leon, for the record?
Leon Beitelsbacher. We're here to ask the county to do something on that mile of stretch road that comes into our place from the north.
From the north coming in?
Yeah. It's to the point now, where if we get a 1/4 inch of rain, we're taking the ditch. We actually take the ditch and drive along the tree line, because the sod has better traction.
Yeah, I brought this up last month.
Remember,
I was out there and drove that road and it's bad.
That
This
road,
goes to the yard,
pardon,
not beyond the yard, to the yard.
No, this is that road that,
from the north.
From the north
that
coming
county
off the federal
maintained
road.
through their, yeah, through their yard. Had culverts in it and the culverts washed out multiple times and then the county abandoned it.
See, about 50 years ago, the county built that road for public access.
Right, but isn't this the same road that she came in on and
This is the one that we discussed about closing it until I had questions from you guys. And then I talked to Johansson as well. And with what was discussed between us,
Yep.
I pulled the petition because it didn't make any sense. After talking to Joe, it didn't make any sense. So we just decided to stop.
Yep.
And this is gonna be a bus route as well in a few years, because John and Jess out there with their little one. And so it's like, well, what do we do? And now we have, with the way the land has been split from Lila Neal passing, you take that road and everything on the east side of the road belongs to us, except for one little parcel up near the curve, that little pie piece there, the little square rectangle, that's John and Jess.
that's on the north side, correct?
That is the northeast, okay?
Yeah.
Then what's on the northwest of that belongs to his sister.
See, there's four different landowners that utilize this road.
okay.
Yeah, that, it's
And
the only
there's-
access they have.
And Terry Holzer uses this road to get to his pasture. So it's just not us using it, it's multiple people.
Where does that hit Holzer's pasture? Is that right?
Right where he clicked right there.
Right on the curb.
Yeah. That's his access to get to his pasture.
He may have another access to the south, but
Right.
that, they just, in fact, you were talking water, they just connected into the main water, the rural water,
Yep.
for Terry up in that corner.
Oh, okay.
So now we have a muddy mess up at that corner too, where they dug up last year and,
And I talked to Commissioner Magrum maybe 2-3 years ago, and you said there's nothing you can do because it's a private road. I don't know if you remember our conversation, but it's a county road. The county built that road for public access, and for years, we had a lot of people coming right through the yard, mostly farmers, so they didn't have to go to Highway 83 and come over by Tenvick and come over.
Yeah.
So the creek washed out, and then they kinda washed their hands. They didn't wanna replace the culverts in the creeks.
There used to be a sign that said private road there though, wasn't there?
What's that?
There used to be a sign there that said private roads. I mean, that was probably,
Well, we put that there to keep people off from driving on it because it was wet.
right, but I mean, probably even, I didn't know if there was maybe an easement on it or not, but I always went off that sign that
There's
said
no-
private road.
There's the only sign there now is a game and fish,
Okay,
game and fish sign.
cause there, Josh, when you looked at that, I think we talked about that last month, there was an easement through
Yeah,
there, right?
there's a public easement.
There is a public
Yeah,
easement.
From one end to the other.
Yep.
It's probably more to take place of a section line or a quarter line, like, I'm assuming it's probably pretty rugged to try and build on any of them section lines, so they took the path of least resistance right in through,
And it's
right
not
in
a
through
huge,
Beetlesbucker's yard.
wide, built-up road. I mean, like I said, I was on it last month. If a guy would just pull the shoulders up and I think you could
The
clear it up
shoulders
pretty
have
quick.
been
And
pulled up and.
It's not a ton of traffic, so I don't think it would have to be
Absolutely
good
no
up
gravel on there anymore.
every month, but it's,
So that road used to connect to Will Lane, right, on the other side, is that the,
exactly.
there was one or two culverts or bridges, obviously, yep. So that was actually a connecting road.
That's tough topography.
Yeah, through the creek there, yeah, that's pretty rugged there, but-
Have you looked at that, Russ, in your city in there?
I did,
Have you?
yeah.
I haven't traveled that down there. I don't know it, and I'll lie to you if I say I did. I haven't.
it's not real built
But
up.
it's-
It's pretty much
You know,
flat.
it's becoming a safety hazard for my boy and his kid and wife, and It actually takes her 15 minutes to drive that, when it's wet. Takes her 15 minutes to drive from the Tenwick Road to her place.
To her place.
5 miles an hour and the wheels are spinning all the way in. You know, and now I understand, is there something that you won't do anything unless it's on a section line?
Well, I would say you would have to have at least some kind of documented right of way. Cause there are roads that aren't on the section line that do have right of way, that, you know, they built them, like here, they built it because they probably couldn't build it on the section line, or, you know, there was a huge ravine or something like that, so. I mean, there are roads out there, but it needs to have some kind of public right of way, otherwise we're going on private property, which creates a lot of liability.
It's been this way for 10 years.
For how long?
10 years this road has been this way. You know, bad and hard to travel on.
I mean, if it's got county right of way, then I mean, it can be worked on, so it's a matter of, you know,
Getting it done.
whether or not you wanna add the decision to it. I mean, I think the issue we ran into in the past is that there's roads that they probably created easement for the county to build it, and then now it seems like we have to maintain it forever, and, you know, if it washes out, we have to rebuild it, and like, those are some of the questions that we ran
Well,
into issues
that was
with,
the
but.
problem to the south.
Right, but I mean, it comes to whether, you know, at some point, graveling and blading is just so much different than adding, you know, 3 giant culverts and building up a giant road, and so that's where the discussion always comes in, like with this, we wanna make sure that there's public right of way, cause it's not naturally on like a section line, so the assumption is it's a private road until you're kind of proven otherwise. Well, that road was built 50, 60 years ago, it's before most of our time, so you have to look into it. Well, if Josh looked into it and it's got right of way, then if it's got public right of way, then at least it does give us the opportunity to go in and maintain it if we want to, cause we're not on private property. So then it kind of becomes a decision of the commissioners essentially.
And in the fall of the year, we get probably 100 vehicles, because there's plots land
All
all
around.
around us. So we
And
get
it
a
is
lot
public,
of
I mean,
vehicles.
Well, it goes down to Harvey Johners, doesn't it?
No,
On the
that's not
east
the
side.
same road.
What's that?
Doesn't that go to Harvey Johners?
That's to
That
the,
Nelson
to the
line?
east.
To the east, right, but solid east.
Yeah. That's a different road there.
Different road.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's just, like I say, it's getting to the point where it's so bad,
Well, and there's 2 families out on it now.
Well, yeah, if it's gonna be a bus route.
Yeah.
and then like my wife says, in 2-3 years, it's gonna be a bus route.
Russ, what did you think when you went out there and looked at it? I mean, can we blade it and that'll suffice for now? Does it need a bunch of gravel? Does it need culverts? Where you're at, your thoughts with it?
It definitely needs blading and gravel right now.
There's no culverts to worry about.
Yeah, I didn't think there was any, it's not high enough to.
There's
be able to put
culverts in there
culverts
already,
through, I
so
think.
there's nothing to worry about there. But something has to be done. I don't know what, if a guy can just pull up the shoulders for now, and there's a little bit of gravel on the shoulders, cause you know, but not enough to do anything.
How long is it?
It's a mile stretch.
A mile.
To that mile stretch to the corner there.
Okay.
To that corner where it goes into the yard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that corner comes around and it's down a little bit to John and Jess's, then it goes farther down to our house.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming that road went right through the yard then.
Alright,
As you
So I'm
said.
sure there's easement going all
So
over.
there's probably an easement all the way to the yard. There is.
Yeah, from this corner all the way to 72nd.
They did that instead of going down the section line, pointed least
Well,
resistance.
Right, I'm sure there's a bunch of huge gullies if you drive that section line or something, there's some major issues with that, so. And I'm sure the key point was to get a road to Neil and Lyle more than anything. Obviously, they were creating a connection road because that was the good of the public, but the main intent was to get access.
Like you say, if they could have done it on the section line, they would have.
Right.
They couldn't do it.
But the creek's right there.
Is that the old homestead?
What's that?
That's the homestead, isn't it?
Yeah, down there where the store is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's families living there, I don't know what to say, but I say, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the type of road that probably doesn't need to get bladed every 2 weeks neither, it probably
No, I
needs it in the spring.
it
or
hasn't
something.
been
Yeah,
bladed
Twice a year, right?
Right.
It hasn't been bladed for 8 years, 10 years.
Well, I think some gravel probably would. fix a lot.
Yeah, just a few loads of gravel will probably do.
Would gravel address the issue? From what you see?
Blade it up and put some gravel.
Pardon then,
I say, would gravel correct the problem, you feel?
pulling the shoulders up and gravel, that's all a guy needs. There's no need to dig culverts in or anything like that.
What are your feelings, guys?
Well, I just, there's
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
two families at the end of that road and it's,
And I understand, you know, do something for somebody, but somebody else is gonna call and say, hey, you did it for him.
Yeah.
But this was a road that had easements.
Well, again, like I said, even in defense of myself, cause I've known you for many years, Leon, I'm never anything personal with it, but seeing the private road sign and also not knowing if there was an easement, when you called me about it, I was probably like, well, it's a private road, we don't go on private
The
property, so.
reason that private road was put there, we didn't
Sure.
really know what was going on.
And I
We thought
understand that.
You know, we just moved out there, and my dad was a guy that never told us anything. I mean, and,
But I mean, I'm just telling you in defense of that, like, not to make it like it was anything personal, but just with that limited amount of knowledge, the interpretation was, well, we're not probably going to do that. Well, I mean, with Josh looking into it and finding there was easement, at least that gives the county commissioners the opportunity to say, well, if there's public easement, we can access it if we wanna maintain it. We wanna put a few loads of gravel and do it, and like you said, with multiple landowners, multiple residents, it's really no different, if it was moved over 1,000 feet, we probably wouldn't even be talking about it, so.
we got land, you know, renters that drive the heavy machinery in there and the combines and tractors and trucks and so.
I'd say you'd probably just leave it at the road superintendent's discretion, you know, I mean, get it on the route, if they're in the area, put as much gravel as you can justify doing in that amount of time, and start blading it seasonally, whatever, you know, once a year, just, I mean, it's probably one of them roads where the more you blade it, the worse it'd probably get at some point, like, you're probably better off to touch it up, and if it had adequate gravel and you hit it once a year, it's probably gonna be as good as it needs to be, you know, and if things get worse, you call in, it gets bladed as needed, like,
Touch it
whatever,
up for me, yeah.
I mean, I guess, you know, I'd say probably just give the road superintendent permission to maintain it as he sees fit.
What are your feelings, Russ, on that? You okay with that?
Yeah.
I mean, if you got any major improvements, you don't feel comfortable making that decision, come to us
Come to
about
us.
it, but if, you know,
Yeah.
just maintain it as you see fit, or when you guys are in the area with gravel, or whatever you can justify, you know, I mean, you don't have to go lay 3 inches on it from top to bottom, but, you know.
Just something for a little traction.
Well, right, but I just, you know, generally something like that, you'd probably put a couple loads on when you're in the area, maybe a year or two later, yeah, we still could use some on the hilltop, but it might take 2 or 3 years to really get it the way you need to, but it'd probably be a huge improvement, just whatever they do, just to start
Right
off.
now, if we get a 1/4 inch rain, we got ruts that deep.
Right.
The frost is coming up.
And then it dries, and then you get.
Yeah.
I mean, guess, just,
And you're not very handy with the wheels, so that's.
that's the stuff to say to Leon after the meeting, Dan, come on, no. I mean, I would just say for the sake of clarity, I would make the motion to authorize the road superintendent to maintain Lila Lane as he sees fit.
Gardner seconds. Sounds good, the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you guys,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thanks,
You
Leon.
bet. Let us know how it turns out, man. Okay?
Well.
Thanks for coming in.
you gotta get your groceries before you go back out on Homestead, right?
To wait till it freezes. That's bad.
Wait till it freezes when you go home.
You should still be frozen from last night, I think.
So happy, it's 40 below.
Doesn't work good, man.
Smoothest that road's been the whole year, right?
Russ, do you wanna speak next? Yeah, we still come in irate. So good.
Morning, guys.
Morning, Russ.
Just a little update, I guess, on what we're doing. We're doing some maintenance on some of the equipment out there. We got a little remodeling going on as far as the inside the shop there, a little bit in the corner by the bathroom and stuff like that, doing some work. You know, there's 2 new guys that started. Dustin Huber started here 2 weeks ago, and Jerry Lowinger came on this week. They are actually out in the blades right now, doing a little training and stuff like that. So We did partake last week in Valley City as well. There was 7 of us that went over to a blade class and took that into, for a day, so.
That's very beneficial, isn't it?
It is, it's little things you pick up here and there, and everyone seemed to
Well, we went to one there.
get something out of it, yeah, so. Other than that, we're just kinda waiting for the weather to straighten out here. We do have the tar situation right now. We did work out a deal with Morton County. We're gonna get tar from them for this year as well as us and for the city. So we do have that covered for this year, so we'll be able to, and then throughout the summer, we will work on our tank, get it all set up. We're just running out of time to get all this taken care of, so it's gonna come too fast for us to get it done this year.
Okay. So you got a place to store this tar?
Right now,
Yeah.
no.
They'll fill their tar wagons up.
Tar wagon,
Fill it,
right.
use it.
Right,
Yeah.
we need 2 tank full or 2 tar wagon full to get our project done.
Okay.
And the city basically has the city's is 600 gallons, ours is 1,000.
Okay.
The city usually uses 1,800 on a hard year. So what they're doing with they're gonna chip seal the streets this year.
Right.
So they don't need as much this year, so Tyler said their wagon is full right now.
Okay.
So we're gonna do our 2 next week, hopefully, we're gonna go up tomorrow and actually fill the wagon up. And hopefully next week, we're gonna start our tarring and hopefully get done. And then when we're done, we're gonna fill the wagon, and then whenever the city streets thaw out enough, they will be ready to use it and everything will be covered for the year, and hopefully we can,
You're working with Strasburg too?
no, Linton and.
Strasburg uses barrel tar.
They use
Yeah.
barrels.
Barrel, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, hopefully after that, we can get our big tank set up and stuff out there, we can just order in a tank or load or whatever we wanna get and go from
Strasburg
there.
will probably switch once we get that work.
I think they would,
Yeah.
because that's a hassle.
Yeah.
Hazelton does that too, I think they use that
Barrel tar.
emulsion, the 200-gallon totes of emulsion,
yeah.
so that,
Okay.
I think it's cause of the same issue though, I think they had difficulty getting tar, so, like you said, you might have them transitioning, maybe not now, but in 5 years when they need to upgrade a wagon, they're like, hey.
I know
So,
the city.
You could have a scenario where you get more.
City of Linton ran all over the last couple of years looking for tar, all over the place, cause the state cut pretty much everybody off, it was a state deal with their, comptroller office, so. Yeah, I think they went to Ashley and they went all over to get tar, so, that's good, thanks Russ, it's good for the city and the county.
Other than that, that's about all I got for this month, I guess.
I think it's called 96 X Street, it's actually the one that you built for Hummel's, on the south side of Rice Lake.
Okay,
That one, a part of that agreement we had written in there is that we were gonna blade that like once a year or something, so.
Where's this at?
That's the access road coming off and going into like Rice Lake there.
South, on the south side.
Oh, on that
So it'd be on the north side of
I was
Federal
thinking
Aid
the
Road,
north side.
that's called like 96 X Street or something, cause it's right north of
Yeah, it's
96,
not on
but
here, but
Yeah.
addressing. yeah.
that was a part of the like plat agreement,
Agreement
was
that
that,
we-
and I mean, there's no demands or nothing, they were just wondering if like in the spring, you know, maybe in the fall, it's kinda almost gonna be like Leon's, as an as-needed deal, just
right,
keep an eye on it, check it, or, you know, if somebody calls and you go look at it and it got rutted up really hard or something, it might
Okay.
just need a touch-up, I mean, you're familiar with that road, it's not a huge wide road, probably not, and it doesn't need to get like a part of the route and get hit every 9 days or something, but
Yeah.
that was something, I was reminded of that, I know we looked into it once before, that was part of the plat approval, it was written in there, that it would just get light seasonal maintenance, I mean, I don't think any gravel hauling or nothing, just, it would get some
Yeah.
occasional blading.
There's another thing, Russ, I think I mentioned it to you on Kenny Soccer, east of Strasburg, who's in a wheelchair. He's got a farm east of town, and there's a culvert when you come off the main road, right by the oil pipeline riser, there's a fence to the north of his place, on the northern border pipeline.
okay,
Is that the gas, that's gotta be the gas line.
Yeah, that's the
Or
gas line,
east.
it's northern border.
He's got a culvert coming down to his yard, and he can't do nothing about it, he's in a wheelchair, the guy. And he asked me to look at it, and I looked at it, it should be, you should look at it, it's just like maybe a quarter mile off the main road that goes down into his yard. take a look at that culvert down, there's a draw that goes down in, and it's steep as can be on both sides of that culvert, especially on the east side. See if we could do anything with it at all, maybe extend the culvert, that we could add some dirt. He's concerned about people that drive that section line, even though it's not developed from his yard south, that somebody's gonna get hurt. And he asked us just to take a look at it from a liability standpoint.
Okay,
Yep, right, if you, that's his yard there, right there where the dark green spot is to the north, right there. Going into that other creek or draw to the east. He's brought it up multiple times, he said, nobody ever does nothing, so go take a look at it, we can do something, or take the gap.
okay.
Have you got a lot of culverts cleaned out here the last week or two?
We had a few that froze up, stuff like that, cause of the fast thawing that we had.
Yeah.
We ran around with some salt and stuff like that and tried to get a few of them open, actually out there by Aaron, there was a few, stuff like that. There wasn't many, there was, I don't know, 10, 15 probably total. Some of them did open up on their own, you know, and stuff like that, but so far everything's been hanging in there pretty good.
That salt trick works.
It does, you know, it takes a few days usually and then the temperature, whatever, but
I think for the most part, most of these culverts were just like packed snow on the ends, they weren't froze under the road, so
Yeah,
once you get the end open, you can,
Yeah.
you know, unless it was a flowing water deal, some of them were froze all the way through, but some of them, like over by my place, that was just packed snow that must have melted down over the end of the
Yeah,
culvert, cause we didn't have any water flowing through them, you know, it just.
Just a burn.
So yeah, some of them, you know, if you can get it open on the end, you can get them going, but.
and we did have a few spots where the water did come across the road with some of these farmers, are farming through these waterways and stuff like that, and it's really creating some havoc in some of these areas, you know, so I'll reach out and try to see if we can't work with them a little bit and try to get, cause they're losing topsoil, they're losing everything, I mean, it's all washing right down the ditch and going across the road, you know, a lot of it down to the southwest corner of the county here, but
Yeah.
try to address some of that stuff if we
That
can.
plugs everything up, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Especially get a big rain.
I'm gonna compliment you from the people out there, when you were out there blazing those roads and we had that thaw with those, is it pick blades? Cutting edges, they were impressive people.
Yeah, they really were, Russ.
Right, in that area, down in your area?
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we can continue into the spring here with them as well as the plan, so try to get some of the holes and stuff covered up and taken care of if we can.
Yeah. Now you gotta know, you don't really know when you spring is gonna come, right, Russ?
Yeah, they were just asking that the other day, when can we take the wings, and I'm like, yeah, it might be a little bit early yet, but
Like, yeah.
better hang on for a
Well,
while.
if you want snow, take the wings off.
Yeah,
That'll- you wanna
During a
guarantee-
snowstorm,
Yeah,
I'll give you and the guys an attaboy too with that snowstorm, a lot of people were so impressed that the
Oh,
roads were open by Monday morning, nobody could believe it. I heard a lot of good, so you guys did really good, pass it on to everybody out there.
Unheard of event.
They did a heck of a job, everybody, and it was a, kind of a weird snowstorm, we had to cover every road, usually you don't have to hit every road, you know, but this one just laid flat but they did, everybody stepped up and did a really good job out there, so.
Yeah, in the long run, you're way ahead because you got that off the roads, you know?
Yeah,
It did
exactly,
thaw.
they thawed out nice and stuff for the most part, and it did work pretty good.
Well,
Anything else, guys?
the only thing I had, Dan, was, I wanted to add, some discussion on looking for some gravel.
Okay.
You know, down the road, I don't know, I feel we haul that gravel way too far.
One of the guys was just here that said he's got gravel, Leon Beidelsbacher.
Okay.
That section just north and east of that road, he's-
North and east of that.
well,
road,
north of his
south
farmstead and on the east side of that,
end, On them,
on that
Draws.
Lila Drive, he's got gravel there.
Okay.
And he kinda showed some interest. I think he's not the only one, right, Rustin?
No, there's been a few people that have reached out and would be willing to let us come in and test if we wanna do that.
Yeah, like I said, I talked to down there by Pollock, you know. and,
Okay,
is there areas down there?
Well, yeah, for
Man, that'd be a plus.
horrible down there, but South Dakota's already talked to him, so.
they have,
But they haven't come in and tested yet, so.
Yeah.
Go ahead, he said, go ahead.
So we have a green light to go in and
Yeah,
test.
yeah, Orp said, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, Leon's would be nice too, it's kinda like.
It would, it'd sure be nice to get some in that area,
it would, that would be
way down in there.
that's kind of a dead spot down there where we don't
Yeah,
have
oh,
nothing.
so far, yeah.
Oh, that's a bad area for hauling.
It's the reason why there's never enough gravel. I mean, if you look at the worst parts of the county, it's because it's a 40-mile haul from the next
Yeah,
pit, and
it's
so.
just not.
When you have 3 weeks to haul gravel, you take the low-hanging fruit, and you haul close, and the guys just have to wait till next year, well, then next year's 10 years down the road, because it's never feasible to haul it, and then like, 2 years ago, when we just bit the bullet, and we were hauling down to Westfield, and you do 800 loads, and it's still not enough, cause you're 20 years behind, so, I mean, that's, if you really wanna look at the real killer why there isn't gravel in certain areas, just relate it to the gravel map, and it'll tell you everything you need to know, so. That 76th Street right north of my place, that comes from the Binkowskis, where the water did go over the road.
Yep.
Are you gonna maybe blade that soon or something? though?
He was up there yesterday,
Okay, perfect.
but yesterday
'Cause
afternoon
that
actually.
wore a lot deeper than we thought. When that first day when I called you, it was about that deep, and all of a sudden that thing was, I mean, that was
Yeah, he did
pretty
take off
obvious.
about 2:30 from out here and ran up and he said he
perfect.
got that all back in
Okay,
shape,
no, that
so.
was good. And then the only other thing was, I wanna say it would be 63rd, and it's the dump ground road by Hazelton.
Okay,
But right on the curve by the dump ground, really with that last rain, it really is short of gravel like bad. And then
Okay.
the other thing is on that road, that'll continue to an intersection, I wanna say that's 3rd Avenue, and then right by the old Harmon Appert farm, it was just black for about 200 feet, I mean, it just,
okay,
you know, I mean, when it's dry, it's fine, but now with this soft rain, and maybe it had a little snow after a little day, it just,
Yeah.
it was bad. I mean,
And up in your area there, by the, what do you call it, tower, around the Federal Aid Road where, Schnicky's live,
okay,
those curves.
Oh, yeah, that on the,
Man.
you know, they even put gravel on them like he
That's
used to,
rough.
and that's still, that curve has been tough to deal with, but, yeah, that, the other one is, Joe's Road.
Joe's
On
Road.
82nd, right? That one is right before, I think it's Holzer's Tree Road there or whatever, I think that's 4th Avenue or something there, but that is like a black spot, it's just.
That's another.
Just something to note on, I mean, it's not like you have to fix it tomorrow, but just, one thing good about having an early rain like that, boy, it exposed a couple spots that just need some
It's
TLC.
good, kind of like what we just talked about, the
Yeah.
flat spotter sitting in there, going in on, you know, it's an easement road. I don't know what Joe's Road is that an easement road going down into that corner yard?
Oh, I meant 82nd though.
Right, I know which one you're talking.
Joe can fix his own damn.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Right, but no, I meant, cause 82nd just had some really rugged spots on there, yeah,
Is that
Joe, I mean, the road going into Joe's yard is tough too,
Is that an easement on that road?
I don't know.
I
we'd
don't
have to
think so,
look.
it's a driveway, and
My uncle lived in my corner, I think that's probably an easement road. You know where we're talking, Josh?
Yeah, I don't think there is one.
I thought we looked
There is
into
no
that.
easement.
I don't think so,
Just
don't
part
quote
of
me
it
on
is
it,
on
but I can
section.
look.
Take, yeah,
I think
okay,
it's private.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll make a deal, Joe, you rewrite these ordinances, we'll put it
I drove it with a van last night, it's not that bad. Cause the only other thing, I'd probably be the bad guy for even saying this, but, the biggest struggle that we're gonna have is like, especially like in some of these areas, we had 20, 30 hundredths of rain during a week of getting 40-some degree weather, and I know people gotta do things, and life is life, but some folks, especially running some heavy loads and stuff, need to really focus on trying to work in the mornings or in the, I know, just, things gotta get done and life has to happen, but boy, there are a couple roads out there that I don't care what road department you have or what equipment you have, I mean, some of the ruts that got put in some of them roads, just, like even myself, like, I get calls for pumping septic tanks. I pumped a couple tanks at 5 in the morning, it was 20 degrees, and I could get anywhere, and I didn't even leave a track other than just in the frost.
Yeah.
But just a warning, just to folks, like, we're really gonna have to be cautious, especially this time of year, there's a lot of counties do load restrictions, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't, it's always been kind of a struggle in Emmons County, you just hope common sense prevails, and accidents happen and whatever, and it is what it is, I'm not picking or judging on anybody, but just everybody just needs to just use their best judgment and try try and, you know, haul their loads in the early mornings, maybe more than you're comfortable with, and by 9, 10 o'clock, when that sun's hitting it on a 45-degree day, you really should think about just shutting it down, because there's some damage out there that happened that, you could go blade that road on a Monday and they smash that thing, it'll take weeks to fix that rut, it just don't come back.
That scar, you don't take care of.
It's tough, and especially if you get some rain after it, like the frost is kinda coming out and still there, and so you get this soft mush on top, and just, folks need to just do the best they can. I'm not gonna try and be rude about it or whatever, it is what it is, but it just kinda needs to be said that everybody needs to be a little extra cautious, especially with the truck traffic right now, It's
kinda like last year was, the year before, and Burley County and Morton County had an article in the paper.
Yeah,
This is a team effort.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stay off the roads, it's not just,
People are
yeah,
gonna like.
use
I mean,
common
when you sink
sense.
it in with your personal vehicle, it's like, okay, maybe leave the truck in the yard till morning, that's all, that's all I'm just saying, cause every little bit you help by not doing damage like that is easier for these guys to get out there and get them roads healed up and hardened up come hopefully April, May, you know, but.
That they firm up again.
That was just a public statement just to me, because it was a weird stretch too, who'd have thought at the end of February you're worried about, you know, frost coming out in some of these spots, but it did, you know, so.
You go out here at least on 13, west on 13, they were hauling hay out of there
Yeah,
yesterday. Holy crap, man, they had
Yeah, and
much
yesterday
in the
was a nice
section lines
day.
coming out on
Yeah.
day 13. There was mud coming off these semi trucks, it was unreal. They had to pull them out of there with a tractor to get them out of there.
just need to try and use the
Just
best
common
judgment and
sense.
some caution on some of it, because it can get ugly fast on some. You get a 200-foot stretch that's soft and you're running a load on it, boy, you can wreck a road.
So what's the process? Can Russ go ahead and check for gravel, or do we got okay it, or what are we looking at?
I don't know, what do we
I
do?
think historically, if superintendent has some information, it's not very hard to go out and get some samples. I mean, worst case, you might have to go out with a skid loader or mini excavator, something, try and get, you know, you kinda wanna get a profile a few feet deep, not that it's just surface
Yeah.
gravel, but.
So we always did it on our own, or you had the state come in and do it?
No, usually we'd go out and sample on our own, somebody would, you know, either somebody's out there with a hoe digging a water line or something, you stumble into it, or, you know, I mean, Russ wants to rent a mini excavator, do something like that, and go out and sample a few spots and, or, yeah, or whatever, it doesn't have to be you, designate one of
There's
you
a
guys
couple of
want.
areas with trucks now that are running around with them, just an 8-inch bit, and just go
Oh,
down.
that's what I was.
Well, you
So
can
that-
do that too, I mean, if you wanna look into having other people sample, but I know historically with us, if somebody would have a rubber tire or something, then
Yeah,
if they were doing something in the area or whatever, and then you just go out and pull from a lot of times what would happen, just the few times it happened to me is, somebody'd be out digging a pit, and then they'd call and be like, hey, we got some gravel here, well, then they already kinda have it dug, you go out and grab a few samples, or,
Look at
or,
it.
you know, I know one other time, like, I was burying some rock piles, and the landowner had said there was a bunch of gravel, and I asked him if he cared if we would take a sample, and so I already had like an 8-foot hole dug to bury some rock piles, and I called Skylar, and he grabbed some samples, and so sometimes you can stumble into things like that, if not, the road superintendent, you know, or whoever was kinda just.
when a guy does do this, what's the bare minimum as far as yards that we wanna go after? You know, like there's gravel, but sometimes you got 20,000 yards, I mean, do we have a kind of a number we work with on that?
I think you just take what you can get, I mean, the biggest thing that probably would make that decision was if a crusher will come in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if it's 6,000 yards, you probably wouldn't get somebody to come in, 'cause
Right.
the mobilization and the fees, you're gonna be paying $30 a yard, so a lot of them guys usually have some kind of a minimum, so I would say the crusher probably dictates that more than anything, so.
Okay,
You'd probably have to call somebody like a Knife River
great,
and just be like, what's a number before you'd even think,
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't even think about it for less than 7,000 yards. So then you kinda know, I'm not even gonna bid this area unless I know I got X amount of yards, you know?
So that's
that-
why I thought
that
that
makes
they
sense,
went down
yeah.
major depths.
Yeah.
well, these auger trucks, I think, go down pretty good, I mean, you know, but the thing with that auger versus digging, like when Aaron's talking, you can hear mixed emotions where that auger, you know, you got an 8-inch hole.
Right.
Okay, that goes down and you can move over 3 feet or something
Right.
like that, and you
And
can
there's
run
nothing.
out of it. You know, so when they're digging holes, they're gonna pick up and they're gonna go, it's gonna be sporadic, so you do hear some stories where an actual backhoe, you can see it firsthand that you're still in the vein. So it's a little harder to calculate, I think, with the auger truck than it is with an actual machine out there, you know?
Whose gravel is that south of Dave Job's place?
That's, Paul Silvernagel's, that's not gravel, that's fines.
Oh, that is not gravel.
That's some of
Okay.
that fines when they did the highway out there years
Okay.
ago, yeah.
Okay, cause that's a major pile.
Yeah.
Good material for fill and junk like that,
It
but not,
is, yeah.
not like road surface
Okay,
material, but.
that's what, I thought it was a gravel pile.
No,
Lot of-
it's not, it's been mined out already
Okay.
through there,
Okay.
so.
The few times that I've been a part of gravel crushing in the county, we've crushed with people that already knew what they had. You know, like when we crushed at Vandervoorst, they had crushed down there
Yeah.
before, they knew what was left. Yeah,
They
The
know.
last crusher already did a little survey, probably did some sampling, same with Woolbaum. When we got in on Woolbaum at the end here, they already knew what they were crushing, they just told us, do we wanna buy it? So, we haven't, at least in my experience, I don't think we've really done a lot where we've really sampled the spot. Most people are usually contacting us to continue or finish out a gravel pile. The Knoll pit might have been one of the only ones that Francis handled a lot of that, I don't know if that one, you know, if he kind of spearheaded that, or if that kind of fell in his lap, because I know like Woolbaum and Vandervoorst, we were already doing business down there, so.
Well, Woolbaum claims that that's kinda at the end, isn't it?
That was pretty much the end, I think Woolbaum's is about crushed out, because that was kind of the intention of, and that's why we bought so much of it, cause it was gonna be the last, so it's like, well, we might as well just buy it all, we know we're gonna need it. And if we need, you know, if it's too expensive, we'll sell it off, you know, that was kind of the plan, so, yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with us just flat out sampling an area and getting it crushed, cause most of it was, hey, you wanna crush here again? We're like, hey, yeah, why not, so, yeah, it's gonna be tougher for us, and the other thing that's gonna be tough is, you're probably not gonna find a lot of good gravel anymore. You might find some rock and sand, and you might have to haul some clay, or, you know, or you're gonna find one or two really good components, and that's kinda what happened at the Knoll pit even.
Yeah,
We ended up
all
hauling
rock.
that rock in to make better grade gravel, and I think that's probably the future. You're just gonna be lucky to stumble on some good rock and sand, and you're gonna hope to crush and then blend clay or something, I mean.
But it sounds like we gotta get on it, cause if South Dakota's gonna start creeping into our county and.
Well, first thing I would suggest is not talking about it in a meeting, but that's just me.
Why don't you leave and get it over?
No, but in all seriousness though, like if you do find out things about gravel, the best thing to do is probably just go to Russ or, you know, or whatever, if Russ wants to, you know, work with a couple commissioners and you just go and talk to some of these guys, because you're right, it's kind of like a gold rush out there. Gravel's getting tough to find, and, you know, and then where you want it, even if you do find it.
And them guys are talking, I mean, they don't talk to me, but you hear it, that it's scarce.
Yeah.
Well, when I worked the railroad, Guff Miller was crushing rock over by Fredonia and dumping it by the railroad tracks, and we were loading it in cars and taking it to Bismarck for Knife River, that's how badly they wanted rock.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But I would say the only bright point is that we're all in the same boat, everybody's looking for gravel, so the good news about Emmons County is we do have everything we need to make gravel, it just might not all be in the same spot, but I mean, we do have plenty of rock and sand areas where hopefully we can figure some way to blend it, hopefully, and just that's probably gonna be the future unless there's a few other areas that play out, I mean.
What's this chemical works that they spray, what's the stuff that they're spraying on these road beds?
Like that base one?
Yeah, is that really working?
It does, but it's not for, I mean, you're not gonna put it on every road, the whole length of the road, you know, it's a spot, kind of fixing bad spots, basically is what it is.
Have we considered it like, and I don't know what the cost be coming up from 1804 up on that federal aid road, that steep incline on that Strasburg road coming in, and also the one out here by Linton, going up to the tower?
Yeah, we could, I mean, it's up to you guys if you wanna do that.
That's so rough, some of them, to hold the roads.
That's what, $5,000 for a.
It's like $5,800 for the tote, and then you gotta supply the manpower and stuff to put it down, some more gravel, stuff like that.
Water trucks.
You're probably gonna be in that, I'm guessing 10 to 15,000 per mile. You know, after you're all done, I mean, that's a rough figure, maybe I'm off a little bit there, but.
It saves the road and saves the maintenance too, though.
It does,
How long does it last?
it's, yeah.
It's a guess again.
It's anybody's guess at that deal, you know, it does harden things up a little bit and stuff like that, it seems pretty impressive, I personally have never used it, I've just seen it, you know.
Well, can you blade it and work it and
Yeah, remember
reset it?
the guys talked about it.
Yeah.
Well, what happens to it is if it rains, the water actually reactivates it. So there's a short window when you can go in and you
Yeah,
can,
when it's a little wet.
And you can
Yep.
blade it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does get really hard, like on a regular day, you can blade it, but you ain't gonna have much luck. But the water actually, like if you get a rain, a quarter inch of rain or something, it actually reactivates it and gives you a time window to get in there and fix it back up again, you know.
It can be kinda sticky to deal with though too, not like
It-
that. I know the concern, cause like when I was at the mine, they used it right around Highway 200 by Underwood for dust control. But boy, like when it would get really wet, you get like, boy, if it's stuck to your vehicles and things like that, like not saying that's not why you use it, but there are some drawbacks with things like that where
I suppose.
that
It's on
stuff
your
sticks
tires,
to
it
your
gets hard as
vehicles and
rock,
get
and then
it
it's-
is tough to get
yeah.
off. And the other thing too is, if you don't hit your window perfectly to maintain it, it's kind of almost, it can get kind of doughy almost, it can be tough to work with if you don't hit your window. But that being said, if it's a great product 300 days out of the year, is that worth it? You know, I mean, it's tough, and dust control works well, right? Like when
Yeah.
it is dry.
It does, yeah.
That's another huge benefit, that's the reason a lot of guys use it as dust control.
Maybe try that on the first mile of the 10 Victor Road to the east by the cemetery.
Right by my place too, you can do it. That elevator thing.
That makes out better.
Yeah, kinda right by Ron's place.
Just dump the sand that you don't want the
Yeah.
fines.
Yeah, my favorite hay hauler right there. Yeah, that's
Let him work through
Atta
the
boy,
dust.
Rod.
Yeah,
I hear you.
I guess to
He's
speak
never
like
home
we've
to see the dust
spoke
anyways,
before, I
traveling the world.
mean, ideas outside of the box, I mean, obviously within the confines of the budget, but I mean, whatever we can do to improve the roads, I mean, like you said, it might be a deal where it's 10,000 a mile, but you might be able to get 10 spots done in a mile's worth.
Right.
You know, cause a lot of them only
Materials.
need it for 500 feet, or, you
Yeah.
know, so you might be able to,
There's a few pieces of equipment we'd have to kinda, you know, a guy should have a packer, which we don't, and a few other little things. Maybe a disc to kinda get things chewed up a little bit, not big expensive stuff, but there'd be a few more things, and then the water truck, we do have a water truck, it's a semi-trailer, it's a little bit tough to make it work sometimes for things like that, not really, but just a few things a guy would have to get in place before we would attack something like that, but, I mean, I'm all for it, if you guys think that's, you know, the better option.
I'm gonna bring something up, Russ, and just because you're talking about some equipment, some of them, scrapers we have 3 of them sitting there when I drive out to the shop, right?
Right, yeah.
Are they all functional? Do we need all 3, or could we get by with 1 or 2, or can we cash out on 1 or 2 of these and?
We could definitely put one for sale for sure, the functionality of them, I don't know, according to what I was told, there's something wrong with each one of them, but I have not fired them up and actually verified that, I was waiting for the weather to get a little bit warmer and stuff like that to really find out what.
we did use 1 or 2 on Miller's Road when you were here though, right?
Yeah, we had them all 3 down there
So,
actually.
I mean, we've used them in the recent future, but.
Yeah.
They used them on the mile too, you and Nick, right?
Yeah, we did have them.
And on that, Lawrence Engelman
Yeah.
place, didn't
I
you?
know we used them at Ricky Miller's though, cause I was out there with them.
I think the no pit out there was the last time Francis had them all running, I think, but,
Probably about 2 years then, huh?
and then they
3 years or
supposedly this went bad, that went bad, but like I said, I could dig into them, I was just trying to get a little bit better weather here to get out there and get them started up and stuff, so.
And our rotary mower on the ditches, is there an issue? Because I see it in spots where there's a streak this wide, is it a blade that gets busted, or what is it?
I can't answer that, I have seen stuff like that too, I don't know if it's just, what's going on there. Right now, we do have a gearbox that's bad on it, you know, that has to be replaced and stuff like that. I personally, instead of that mower that we have right there, I would really like to look at a flail mower. You know, that hangs off kind of on either the 3-point or on the side of the tractor. They seem to be a lot more efficient and do a lot better job. And I think they're a lot less maintenance than what we have out there as well, but.
The mower we got, is that a blade or is that a chain?
That's got some big blades underneath it that swing,
Okay.
kinda like that gravity style.
Yeah.
The faster it goes and they, you know,
They got a breakaway on it, right?
I'm not real familiar with it, you know, but, I mean, it's just, it seems to be a pretty good, it's a big piece of equipment to run around with and stuff too, you know, a flail mower would probably be a lot more efficient to run around and run down the road and stuff than this thing is, but it's just one more piece of the puzzle we'll have to get through here.
You can move them, those flails, they're unbelievable.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's the latest and greatest that's out there for mowing and stuff, and most counties have went to that style of a mower,
Flail.
from what I've seen, you know.
Plus you can stay on the road, right?
Exactly, you can stay up on the road, you don't have to be down.
Drive down on the edge.
How big of a flail are we talking about, like, what do they make, 9-10 footers, or?
Yeah, it's all of that, they're probably even more of a 15 foot.
14, I think it's an oddball, it's a 14 foot.
Cause I know with, I mean, what are we going, we're usually trying to go 15-20 feet down the ditch if we can, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'd basically run your tire, your tractor on the shoulder of the road, and the mower would hang down, I would say from me to you roughly, give or take, it'll cut that much of a swath out of there with one.
Would,
One
I mean,
pass.
would one pass with that?
Is that bar that long? I thought they're only 14 feet, but that's the drawback on it.
Okay,
Yeah, that might be
How'd
about,
that tape?
I think this is
Right.
about 11 and a half, so come on.
I mean, the question would just be like, cause you normally with the mower we have, do we do it in one pass, or do we gotta do two anyway?
they're usually doing one pass from what I get. I
So
understand.
I mean, that's the only question, but like if you had a flail and you gotta make two passes, is
then it
it
isn't
just,
as efficient.
well, I mean, I don't disagree with the flail, it probably would be better, because it just seems like probably even less moving parts in some respect, but
They
if you
do,
only get like a 9 or 10 footer, you gotta make two passes, now it's taking you a lot longer to mow, that's usually a pretty short window for us anyway, but something to
one-
consider.
the ones I've seen, I think a brand new one from Vermeer, from, was it Twin City up there, I believe it is? I believe they were 16 or 17,000 bucks for a brand new one. So even the price of them is a lot cheaper than buying, what,
I
like
was
that
gonna
big
say
one that we
that,
have.
is ours a Woods?
Yeah, so,
That's probably $30,000 mower.
it was 35,000, and that's been,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how many years
Well,
we've
we've had
had
it for a few years, so yeah, it's probably
And that's
50,000
got
now.
that extra feature where they swing.
that
that other
off-
section,
offset
yeah,
to
right.
it, yeah.
I know when when we had bought the Woods, that was pretty common, but obviously they're running into issues like we are too, if they're starting to switch to the flail mowers. 'Cause-
Yeah, even a lot of the farmers you see got them flail mowers already running around mowing their ditches with them, you know, so.
There's no stopping.
You gotta
Right.
watch,
They don't plug.
might have to
Watch
watch
rock.
the window.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's, yeah.
Because
But,
it'll take the side.
I took two out in one day.
Did you?
Back and the side.
Shut it, I don't want to.
I didn't have much left. So, yeah,
So you don't need air conditioning with
No.
a flail mower then, you
No.
just let the windows get.
I don't know
knocked
if a flail, this is a disc mower.
out? Oh, disc mower.
So a
yeah.
flail mower is probably different.
Yeah.
they're, yeah, just same thing, just different
Just
components in there,
paddles,
yeah.
Right, a disc mower, you know,
Oh,
they
yeah.
throw it.
Well, what kind of shape is our Woods mower in otherwise, I mean, is it?
You know, like I said, the gearbox is out, it's got two gearboxes stacked on top of each other, one of them is actually out, something happened, we haven't dug into it far enough to really, so I can't even answer that, to be honest with you.
Well, cause just in my experience too, I mean, if you've got a nice piece of equipment that's still got some trade value and you're looking at,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, instead of waiting 5 years for the perfect scenario and then it depreciates to nothing, maybe it's not a bad idea to look into some options. I mean, if it doesn't fit your needs, you wait a year, but I mean, you know, not a bad idea to get it up to snuff and then,
Right there,
That Vermeer?
yeah, right in the top, right there, that one,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure, like a 3-point off the
But
side.
see,
Yeah.
the width, I don't think they're as wide as you're saying.
Well, mine's a 10.
This one has 680.
That might be a disc mower.
There's probably a few different ways. That is a disc mower.
That's a window.
That's what Tom and them shapes. I mean, they're flying.
And maybe they are disc mowers, maybe I'm saying it wrong, I mean,
Yeah, that's a disc mower.
That's a disc.
Yeah,
That's a-
you're talking like a disc bind essentially, or
I've
whatever they
got
call
one
it,
just
yeah.
like that.
It's probably got 3 different names.
Wow. It's got a few acres.
And what, that's what, 8 feet or 6?
10.
10? They're small.
Them were 10s too.
Yeah.
But I think they
The one on the
do
left is bigger.
flail mowers too. They're a little different.
I can ask the guys out there once,
Yeah.
like I said, you know, most of this stuff I should verify before I even say what I'm saying, I guess, to you.
See, now there you go, that might be, but that's a brush. Or
That's
them
a brush.
That's flail mowers. That could be a flail, that bottom one there.
Yeah, swale will knock down with trees, everything.
But I
You
don't
have to
know
find a
how
pretty
hard-
big one for you.
Yeah,
so,
right,
is
that's
that-
the other thing.
I mean,
I
that
would
looks
think
like
you'd
for a
almost have-
50 or 60 horse tractor, that's pretty small.
You gotta have, probably wheels out in the end too, if you're going that wide. There, that's a flare,
Yeah.
yep. Well, you check it out, right?
Check it, yeah.
Okay,
Anything else?
How about, I know Mark had said that about tractor, do you lease tractor? I don't.
We have a tractor right now that's under lease from last year yet, they did a 1-year lease on it, I believe that's still till June or July, something like that.
That deer?
That John Deere, and then we did a talk with, Twin City, I believe it is up there, and there's another one, a possibility of getting another one for $1.
Oh,
And then we're allowed to put 250 hours on it.
there you go.
So if we get one, or we can get one, we're gonna take one for $1.
That's usually either through the state or like the Association of Counties, right?
Yeah.
They kind of
That's
have a,
where this was through.
it's a lease program like that, and that's what we do every
And
year.
250 hours is enough for what we do.
Right, that would get us through the summer and stuff like that, and then we wouldn't have to go back with this. John Deere did send it out where we did have an option to lease another one from John Deere for, I can't remember the actual dollar amount it was, but it's not the cheapest. I mean, it's a good deal, but it
It's
costs
not a
you
real good deal.
some money. I think that this lease for that John Deere was, there's two parts of it, I think it was $6,000 a thing, so it's like $12,000 or $13,000 a year to lease that John Deere tractor. Something like that, I could be off a little bit on the numbers, but,
Versus a buck.
right, then we do the New Holland, but
Well, the only thing is that you have that 250-hour limit where if you thought you were gonna use it more than
Yeah.
that, and part of the reason I think that wasn't working is cause we were trying to utilize the windrow breaker, the rock rake,
You're blading.
and so there's concerns probably where we
Get
probably
more
couldn't
hours.
use that, or we wouldn't have been able to put enough hours on it, because I think that 250 hours is pretty strict on the lease, that's kind of the deal with.
What happens if you go over that, I'm sure it gets.
I'm assuming there's probably.
his words to me, I said, what if we go over, and he said, then you own it.
See, and
So we
I
don't watch that
think that's the
person.
reason why when we
Yeah,
started,
have to have
we
a-
started leasing that tractor, even though it sounds like a lot more, you were just leasing it and paying on the hours, and probably maybe getting a discount if you didn't use it as much, but yeah, if you go over the 250 hours, like, cause they're basically cutting a deal to the state and the Association of Counties, but they don't want it abused, so. And that's the other thing with us flinging rocks around on them windrows and stuff, I think, that was probably the decision to not go with that. Like, those tractors are great for mowing, you wanna do anything else with them, where you maybe have some risky activity, you start paying for stuff, so.
You stay away.
Well, I think that's the reason why we probably didn't go for that for some of that stuff, I think it's,
Yeah,
you know, so just depending on what your uses, I just make sure whatever you do, you look into really well, cause like you said, you might,
So for part of the year, we might have 2 tractors out there, maybe, if we get this other one. And then we'll let the John Deere go back and keep this other one here as the plan here, so.
I think with pulling shoulders and using that rake, that's been pretty, I wouldn't go away from that, even if you have to look into leasing another tractor or something, I think that's, well, got pretty well good response, once the guys were getting used to it and realizing how to utilize it, I wouldn't go away from 2 tractors if that's the only, if you need a mowing tractor and one to run on that rake, I would consider it, you know, just try and get the best deal you can or work it out, but
Okay,
yeah.
at least in my opinion, I thought that was a pretty good way of trying to
No, that
maintain some
is.
stuff, cause when you pull them shoulders, it's a disaster unless you get rid of it,
Unless
right?
you get rid of it.
Yeah.
and then the only other thing is this deal with the tractors that,
Yeah, you
Yep.
might wanna stay here with that. Yeah, you wanna stay here?
yeah, I'd like to if I can, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just got the,
Oh,
I went out to Verizon and asked them to give us a bid.
yeah,
Um,
that's good.
They gave us a couple options. One, you can see has the PTO sensors and the front facing dash cameras, which we didn't really think we needed that stuff at this point. We were basically just looking at the tracking subscription. And this is a pro, I believe he said this was a pro install. So they come and actually install it rather than like Morton County actually got on the phone and FaceTime with the guy and they showed him how to do it.
Oh,
And I know that, Craig, I know you had a company too, and Russ and I kinda visited about that, and our only concern was with Verizon, they're a 24/7, 365, and that company is not open on weekends if they're out and about and have trouble.
Well, you don't work on weekends either, though.
They worked all weekend moving snow. So that was kinda why Russ thought maybe Verizon was a better, and this is what most of, I think this is what like Burley Morton uses, a lot of the counties are using Verizon. But this is, I think you might have wanted to add a couple more, I don't.
Yeah,
all the
we're
vehicles-
short one blade on there. So it'd be 17 actually, so it would change it by 1895.
And this has got the sign truck on it, and
It does not.
you don't wanna put that on there?
I thought about it and stuff like that, I guess I'll leave that open to you guys.
Well, it's up to you. I mean, I think, you know, several of us went and saw this in action in Morgan County, and it's, my opinion was it's really a nice tool, when you get a call about, hey, I haven't seen a blade in 6 months, and you can go out and say, oh, it was out there 3 weeks ago, and, or somebody says, hey, this guy's been sleeping here in the approach for 4 hours, and you can go out there and say, well, he's been sitting there for 28 minutes over lunch, and he's moving again. Or, you know, anything, you get stranded, whatever, you could use this as a security blanket for our guys, I think. I hate the word tracker, but I mean, maybe locator makes it sound a little better, but I think we all, I'm sure Aaron was familiar with this, they've had it before here in Emmons County, this Verizon trackers, and I don't know if.
The Verizon?
I thought they said they did. I thought those guys out there said that they had trackers on a few years back.
I mean, the only thing I know of is that they were using GPS on their phones when they were trying to.
Okay.
When the advent of the county phone was that one for open records management, so the guys weren't getting their private phones subpoenaed if something would happen.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing was if you're taking pictures of work-related things, it's not intermingled with your family photos. And then we had the GPS capability, so if
That's
guys
my
wanna
bad.
stop in their blade, which, I don't know if our phone company's Verizon, it's probably a similar software, but I don't think it was just through the phones, but.
This is a pretty
They were-
slick deal, like I said, I think everybody that went to Morton got to see
We
it.
got to see it, didn't you?
It's
Cause
a,
with the data, is there any kind of like data storage, and the reason why I say that is cause with the phones, those guys were able to pin like a bad spot in the road, a culvert, and at least that was a nice avenue for like, wow, it's like
Later.
3rd Avenue between, well, like, at least you had GPS coordinates, you could kinda lay out like, that was the
Think
spot
about it.
where
Where
he
you
thought
need
it was.
gravel.
yeah, and I'm not sure,
Could they do it, Russ?
Well, I'd have to check in on that, cause James did a lot more of the research on this one. But that brings up a good point, and actually, it was mentioned out there about dropping gravel and stuff, just like Aaron said. If these things do have them capabilities, it would really come into play pretty good for everything, I mean.
If you could start mapping,
Yeah.
putting that on, like, where a culvert was replaced,
Oh, yeah.
where gravel
Yeah.
was put, so at least
I
you
can
can.
ask this.
I think
I mean, that was
I can send.
I mean,
I think
if
so,
you
they had all
could
their
dig
maps
into it
on.
like that would be huge.
It wouldn't surprise me, but that would be the biggest because that adds a lot more value
That
than
would
just
do.
say, well, we're tracking you, it's like, well, no, it's a data collection device, which, again, yes, you're tracking equipment, you're tracking time, you're trying to track efficiency, but also, if you can add those
Yeah,
details, cause that's what we're missing.
Right.
We're missing the amount of work that's getting done there, that just cause it didn't get seen that day,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it didn't happen.
happen.
You know, and it's hard when you only lay 5 loads of gravel on a mile stretch and you blend it in and it looks good, but it's like, well, they didn't put any gravel here, it's like, they did, it's tough, and 5 loads is all you're gonna get right now, we're trying to get everybody, and at least you could prove that it's like, cause sometimes you get accused of getting nothing, and it's like, that's not true, it just isn't as much as you maybe wanted or needed, but it was more than you had, you know?
I sent him an email.
And especially culverts, like, to me, culverts is such a big deal, cause so much of these culverts get lost in the dirt, and they farm the waterways, it's silted in now from 3 big rains worth of sunflower stalks and corn stalks, and there's a culvert in there, and you're trying to figure out why water's sitting there, well, there is a culvert, it's just buried, and if you at least if you had some kind of a master list where you could look back and be like, someone found an 18-inch culvert there 10 years ago, at least you know you could dig for it, not waste your time if it is or isn't there.
Don't we have a map? Didn't Skylar and you work on that, on culvert locations and
Yeah, he
sites,
worked
right?
with, the company in Bismarck, I think. They
Well,
bought that GPS, the surveying equipment,
Yeah.
and she set them up, so whenever they map a culvert, they have their own system. And it was working, I guess, I didn't check it out, but
I think last winter they surveyed like 200 or 300 culverts, cause there was no snow. And that's what they were working on last year too, so I mean, that would be, you know, I mean, if you could start a data collection like that, cause like, when I worked at the coal mine, we had what we called master list. Every time you installed or replaced the culvert, as the survey crew, we went out, we measured it, shot the inverts, so we had the elevation, then when the engineers had to go in and try and figure something out, they knew the elevation of the culvert, the size of it, if there was 3 or 4 of them, everything. Like, it was an ongoing, living process that just every
So
time.
the city of Linton did something like this, they got an iPad through Verizon.
Yep.
And they used it to find all their, water shutoffs, all their curb stops.